Chapter 931. Before Li Tianlan returned to Yuzhou, the result of the Battle of Kunlun City had completely spread throughout Zhongzhou State. First Gu Qianchuan, then Zhu, and then Gu Xingyun. Although Gu Xingyun did not die, no one would think that Li Tianlan did not have the strength to kill him. This battle completely destroyed most of the high-end combat capability of Kunlun City in just over 10 minutes. Everyone who knew the news was stunned. The treason case of the Special Warfare Group was still being investigated in a high-profile manner. Kunlun City was almost completely annihilated. No one could have thought that things would develop so fast. When this result appeared in front of people, everyone was silent for a long time, and then they realized that Kunlun City was finished. Kunlun City might not have disappeared, but when everyone was not mentally prepared, everything that happened suddenly completely meant that Kunlun City was completely declining. Thinking of the treason case of the Special Warfare Group and the heavy loss of Kunlun City, everyone who got the news had extremely complicated feelings. The state-protecting war god, the Special Warfare Center. This time, it was really trampled down from a high place by a person. Huge chaos broke out directly inside the Special Warfare Group when the news was spread. At 9 o'clock in the morning, the speaker of Ningxi province publicly made some remarks similar to "the innocent are innocent" at the provincial council meeting, expressing his support for the treason case of the Special Warfare Group being investigated. The consequence of this public statement was that the governor of Ningxi directly smashed his cup in the conference room. Ningxi had always been considered the base camp of the Special Warfare Group. When the news came out, Li Tianlan and Li Qingcheng had not even left Beijiang. This was just the beginning. In the following hours, important figures of the Special Warfare Group began to express their views that it was important to investigate the treason case, but they also expressed their belief that Gu Xingyun would not commit treason. The black sheep inside Kunlun City should only exist in an individual. It seemed that they were still defending Kunlun City, but as long as one was not a fool, one could see that these people who had firmly opposed the investigation of the treason case had begun to waver. Countless eyes were cast to the Hidden Dragon Sea. Many people wanted to know how the Hidden Dragon Sea would react to this. Li Tianlan left the desert prison for less than a few days, but there was big news almost every day. At the border of Sai City, one sword broke the army. 2 consecutive strikes killed invincible realm experts. East Imperial Palace set up the Hero Stone. Zhongzhou New Group was established. He destroyed the entire Kunlun City by himself. Everything had something to do with Li Tianlan. What would the council's attitude be? Especially Chen Fangqing, who was now destined to fight Li Tianlan to the death. What would his attitude be? Chen Fangqing did not respond. In fact, ever since the news of Zhu's death came, he had been unusually quiet. That kind of silence was not disappointment after anger, but an indescribable lifelessness. When the news from Kunlun City came, he just read it and said nothing. Perhaps most people were concerned about the misery of Kunlun City and the destined decline of the Special Warfare Group. However, Chen Fangqing was most concerned about Zhu's death. He was the only invincible realm killer in the Dark World today. How high-spirited and domineering he had been in the past few years after his rise. Although he was not at the peak of the invincible realm, there were not many invincible realm experts who could be taken seriously by him. An invincible realm killer was extremely dangerous to anyone. But now, the invincible realm killer, who was looking forward to playing with the princess in Huading, died just like that. Unarmed, a kilometer away, life and death in an instant. It was such a simple punch, but it detonated the whole Dark World in an instant. What made Chen Fangqing most ridiculous was that Li Tianlan went to Huading in advance to investigate the environment of the airport. The time of Zhu's death was 6:03 in the evening in Huading. Until the plane took off, a few hours after Zhu's death, there was no sign of Wang Yuetong at Huading or Nanyuan Airport. The termination plan completely failed. After paying the lives of several generals, countless elites lurking in Beihai, and the invincible realm killer Zhu's life, what the termination plan brought to Chen Fangqing was his irreconcilable hatred with the Wang family of Beihai and Emperor Dong's palace. Other than that, there was nothing. Chen Fangqing's heart was a little numb. He targeted Li Tianlan, Emperor Dong's palace, the Wang family of Beihai, and Wang Shengshao. He had tried hard, planned, calculated, and used countless resources. But now it seemed that he was really powerless. It was not until the news from Kunlun City came that Chen Fangqing finally realized that he could do nothing this time. What Li Tianlan defeated was not only Gu Xingyun, but also the 10 Supreme Sword Formation of Kunlun City that Gu Xingyun personally presided over. No one could understand why Li Tianlan was so powerful. He was the chosen one, and his sword intent was flawless. Everyone speculated that once Li Tianlan entered the Invincible Realm, he would have the strength comparable to the peak of the Invincible Realm in the shortest time. But the problem was that Li Tianlan hadn't entered the Invincible Realm yet. How did he do it? This answer was very important, but to Chen Fangqing, it seemed to be of no importance. The important thing was that Li Tianlan defeated Gu Xingyun, who was at the peak of the Invincible Realm, and destroyed the 10th Supreme Sword Formation of Kunlun City, without becoming an expert of the Invincible Realm. It didn't matter how he did it, but he could do it, which meant that he had at least the strength at the peak of the Invincible Realm at this time. He didn't plan to do anything else. Waiting was the only way now. Chen Fangqing only hoped that the mysterious emperor's strength would meet his expectations. He also hoped that Li Guangtu, who had reached an agreement with him, would do his best in the North Sea. He had done everything he could. Now all he had to do was wait for the outcome of the battle. The winner lived and the loser died. There was no other ending. The winter sun shone into the study through the window. Chen Fangqing, holding a cup of tea, opened the window and let the cold wind pour in. His expression was a little dull, as if he had lost all the negative emotions, leaving only a touch of complexity. It was a feeling that was hard to put into words. Recently, he had put all his attention on the plan of the Dark World, so compared to others, he could feel some changes more clearly. It seemed that it had become completely clear, and the steps of the new era had come to him. The whole Dark World had become extremely clear. It was a kind of feeling as if he was about to be ruled. He could feel the figure in the outline of the new era. It killed Gu Qianchuan, killed Zhu, and destroyed Kunlun City. The figure seemed to be moving with the new era, toward the peak, toward the throne. It was a huge pressure that made Chen Fangqing almost unable to breathe. He held the teacup and took a sip silently. His figure was a little bleak and stooped. Bang! In the indescribable silence, the door of the study was suddenly pushed open. Chen Fangqing frowned and turned to look at Yuan Lin, who rushed in. Yuan Lin, who had always been respectful and calm, forgot to knock on the door. He almost knocked the door open and rushed in. Chen Fangqing's heart sank slightly. In his sight, Yuan Lin, who had followed him for several years, was sweating and pale at this time. His whole body was trembling slightly, and he was out of his wits. He looked extremely frightened. What's wrong? Chen Fangqing put down the teacup, tightened his spirit, and said in a deep voice, Oh. Yuan Lin opened his mouth, and his dry voice made Chen Fangqing feel extremely uncomfortable. He felt a burst of irritation, waved his hand, and said impatiently, Get to the point. In the end, Yuan Lin did not call him the Prime Minister. He gasped and swallowed hard. His voice sounded like a moan or a cry. Something happened in Beijiang. Before his voice had died away, the urgent ringing of the phone rang like a reminder. Chen Fangqing's heart sank to the bottom. He quickly walked to the desk and grabbed the phone on the desk. On the phone, Li Huaqing's cold voice sounded. He did not use any formal title. Go to the conference room right now. Hold an emergency board meeting. It happened. As soon as Chen Fangqing opened his mouth, Li Huaqing had already hung up the phone. Chen Fangqing's face darkened in an instant, mixed with a touch of embarrassment. After working together for so many years, it seemed that this was the first time that Li Huaqing showed such undisguised anger in front of him. He froze for 2 seconds, reached out to grab his coat, and walked out of the study. Yuan Lin followed him subconsciously. What happened in Beijiang? Chen Fangqing put on his coat and asked quickly. Yuan Lin's face was a little dull and stiff. He murmured, Something happened in Beijiang. An hour ago in Beijiang. Putting down the phone, Jiang Shangyu shrugged. Looking at Jiang Shan, who was dealing with documents in the office, he laughed. Dad, he won't come back for dinner. Jiang Shan raised his head. Can't he make it? No, he still has something to do. He has to go to Yuzhou, and maybe to Tiannan. Jiang Shangyu coughed and said slowly. After resigning from the snow dance corps, he was still a general of Zhongzhou state, but he did not hold any specific position. His recuperation time was very long, but there was nothing to keep secret. After leaving Snow Country, he went to Nanhai province for a while, and then returned to his home in Beijiang. Most of the time, he accompanied his father, Jiang Shan. To Tiannan? Jiang Shan was slightly surprised. What is he going to do in Tiannan? He doesn't have to go to Tiannan. If there's a chance in Yuzhou, but he went a little late and didn't make it. When he arrived, the battle in Kunlun City was over. But the people who should be taken back have to come back anyway. Jiang Shangyu said softly. Ridiculous. Jiang Shan looked angry. What time is it now? Go to Li Tianlan and ask him to come back? Ask him to come back right now. Jiang Shangyu looked at him speechlessly and did not speak. Jiang Shan suddenly understood something and fell silent for a while. Don't worry. It's just a try. It'll be fine. Jiang Shangyu coughed twice again, picked up a disposable cup, and poured himself a glass of water. Xianyuanfeng and Li Tianlan's state are still uncertain. These are all variables. In fact, Beihai's preparation is almost done, but Li Tianlan is now. I don't know why, but we always feel a little uneasy. It's good to give it a try. If we can bring Qingqing back this time, it will be the best. If not, we might as well take a step back. As long as we know Li Tianlan's state, we can design some more targeted plans. Jiang Shangyu held the cup and said slowly, It's hard to kill Li Tianlan now. With Xianyuanfeng in hand, how can he just have a doppelganger? If the final battlefield of the final battle in Beihai is Mount Dibing, then on that battlefield, Li Tianlan can appear in any corner of Mount Dibing at any time and place. His speed is too fast, plus Xianyuanfeng and the shadow formula. Although we have many invincible realm experts, with his speed, he can even collide with every one of our invincible realm experts within a second, which almost means that every invincible realm expert has to face Li Tianlan. There are too many variables. So, Jiang Shan's face was solemn. It's necessary to determine his state. If we let him go, except for him and Li Guangtu, all the invincible realm experts don't even have the ability to protect themselves. The only way is to have a relatively clear grasp of his state, and then find a way to lock his real body so that he and Li Guangtu can attack at the same time. Jiang Shangyu shook his head. There is only one chance, and it will disappear in a flash. We must test it in advance. He put down the cup, looked at Jiang Shan and said with a smile, So, I will also go to Tiannan in the near future. Of course I won't attack. Yes. Do you have to do this? Jiang Shan was silent for a long time, and then he said in a low voice, You should know that I'm not very interested in the so-called heavenly son, and I don't have much ambition for the hegemony of the family. You are my son, and I only hope that you can be safe. The Jiang family has developed to the present, and it's enough. Why do you have to compete with Li Tianlan? Does it make sense? Jiang Shangyu quietly looked at his haggard father. There was some guilt in his eyes, but there was also a touch of determination. The man who raised him, the man who was silent most of the time but bore everything for him, the man who didn't know many things but supported him without reservation, the man who was treacherous, indifferent, shrewd, rebellious, selfish, and hated by many people in the eyes of outsiders. The man who was willing to dig out his heart with a knife to protect his son and died without regret. But he was also the man Jiang Shangyu admired the most, and the only family he had. Did he have to fight? How could he not fight? Jiang Shangyu's eyes flashed for a moment, with a kind of inexplicable light. You know the answer. He whispered. Dad, he told you, right? Jiang Shan didn't speak. After this, you don't have to be so tired. Jiang Shangyu whispered. Only when Li Tianlan is dead can we have the right to fight or not. After a pause he finally said, I've asked Yang Xiaoqing to take action. Today, right now. The arrangement in Beihai is almost done. We have been waiting for Beijiang. After the matter in Beijiang is solved, it will be the decisive battle in Beihai. Today. Jiang Shan's body suddenly shook. Jiang Shangyu didn't speak. A few seconds later, the door of the speaker's office suddenly opened, and Jiang Shan's calm and majestic voice suddenly sounded. Prepare the car, go to the Beijiang core. Gunshots. Gunshots were everywhere. Blood, crying, screaming, begging for mercy, and cursing kept echoing. The encampment of the Beijiang core was already in chaos. Half an hour ago, when a group of family members of those who died in the Desert War came to the core encampment again to ask for an explanation, but were refused entry, the crowd here had become agitated. It was no secret in the core that the core's pension could not be issued for a long time. In the face of the family members who intended to force their way into the encampment, a guard with a gun pushed down a young pregnant woman. His answer was like a flame that completely ignited everyone's inner anger. Pension? No. If the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State doesn't issue it, what can we do? If anyone dares to make trouble, I'll arrest you all. You want pension? Go to jail. The guards were overwhelmed by the completely angry family members. When the other guards were ordered to shoot as a deterrent, there was no room for redemption. It was Huang Tong who gave the order to shoot. The first bullet of the encampment guard hit the back of a family member. Blood flowed out. All the family members rushed into the encampment like crazy under great emotions. Gunshots rang out. The injured family member fell down. The chaos was completely out of control. Countless soldiers rushed out and looked at the family members who fell on the ground. All of their eyes were completely red. Huang Tong. I'll *CK your mother. When a young company commander cursed, some soldiers had already begun to pick up their weapons and shoot. Not at the family members. Instead, they aimed at the guards who shot at the family members. The twisted faces of those desperate family members were almost imprinted in everyone's heart. Almost every soldier had such an idea. If they were the ones who died on the battlefield one day, would their family members also receive the same treatment? They were crazy. The great anger made the soldiers completely lose their minds. The bullets flew directly toward the guards. In an instant, there was extreme contradiction among the soldiers. Some were carrying out Huang Tong's orders, and some were protecting the family members. The tragic killing broke out directly before anyone could react. The order of the entire encampment completely collapsed in an instant. No one knew what it was. However, the worst incident in the past 100 years completely broke out when no one was mentally prepared. In the 15th minute of the chaos, the top officials in the encampment began to report the situation to the army headquarters. Dongqing Wudi conveyed the situation to Li Huaqing at once. But everything was already irreversible. The car rushed all the way out of the Beijiang Council compound. Jiang Shangyu sat in the passenger seat, looking at the scenery outside the window with no expression on his face. The phone rang. Jiang Shan, with a serious face, took out his mobile phone, narrowed his eyes, and answered the phone. President. Yes, I already know. I just received the phone report and I'm on my way. King bastard. Huang Tong is so confused that he ordered to shoot at the family members. Yes, I understand. I'll do my best to deal with the aftermath. Okay, thank you for your trust in me. After a brief exchange on the phone, Jiang Shan put down the phone with a solemn face. Dad, what did Li Huaqing say? Jiang Shangyu asked. Jiang Shan hesitated for a second, took a deep breath, and said in a complicated tone. The president gave me full authorization on behalf of the parliament. Before the army headquarters, the parliament, and the cabinet arrive, I have full authority to deal with this emergency. Before the people of the 3 highest departments arrive. Full authority. Jiang Shangyu showed a sneer and whispered. It seems that the parliament still doesn't trust us enough. Jiang Shan did not speak. Jiang Shangyu looked out of the window and muttered to himself. In this case, we have to hurry. Chapter 932. Li Tianlan failed to send Li Qingqing to Li Shi in person. As soon as the two of them entered the sanatorium, a tall and burly middle-aged man with a rough appearance rushed over. He seemed to have been waiting at the door of the sanatorium. When he saw Li Tianlan, without saying a word, he directly grabbed Li Tianlan's arm and dragged him in the direction of the nearby helicopter. The rotor of the helicopter had begun to whistle, and it was ready to take off in the shortest time. His face was covered with a thick beard, and he had a rough and somewhat ferocious appearance. His tall and fat body trembled slightly as he pulled the rope stiffly. Li Qingqing, who was a little confused, subconsciously grabbed Li Tianlan's arm and frowned slightly. Li Tianlan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Now there were not many people in Zhongzhou State who dared to treat him like this. But to this man he couldn't get angry. Dongqing Rushi and Dongqing Qiuqi's godfather. Thunder God. Thunder God of the Dongqing clan. Thunder God, who accompanied him in the desert prison for a year. Since he was a child, Thunder God was the first outsider who had nothing to do with the Li family's camp that he had ever met. This was a kind of feeling that was difficult for others to understand. Although they only got along for a year, they were very happy. Later, Li Tianlan left the Li family, and they didn't see each other much. But Li Tianlan had always respected and appreciated Thunder God. No, Uncle Thunder, wait a minute. Where are we going? Li Tianlan followed Thunder God's strength helplessly. Hidden Dragon Sea. Thunder God was stunned and said in a deep voice, "The parliament has been quarreling. Chen Fangqing and the minister almost fought in the conference room. The meeting is now adjourned. The minister told me to wait here and take you there as soon as you come." Chen Fangqing and Dongqing Wudi almost fought? And in the conference room of Hidden Dragon Sea? So explosive? Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. What happened? The situation in Beijiang is very chaotic now. I don't know much about it. Let's talk about it when we get to Hidden Dragon Sea. Thunder God pulled him onto the helicopter. Wait a minute, wait a minute. Li Tianlan turned to look at Li Qingqing and said slowly, "Your mother is in Ward 001 on the 3rd floor of the 2nd building. I can't go there now. How about this, you go to her by yourself? There is no one else in the room. You can have a good chat." Li Qingqing was stunned. She bit her lip and looked at Li Tianlan with a complicated look in her eyes, but she subconsciously let go of his arm. "By the way, tell her that we will go to Tiannan as soon as possible. Tiannan has something you need," Li Tianlan said again. And then he was dragged onto the helicopter by Thunder God. The helicopter shook for a moment and slowly lifted off. Li Qingqing stood under the helicopter in a daze. The strong wind brought by the rotors blew her clothes. She stood there silently and raised her swollen face. She looked a little pitiful. Li Tianlan glanced at her and shook his head. The helicopter rushed toward the Hidden Dragon Sea at full speed. In the cabin, Thunder God had calmed down. He looked at Li Qingqing, who was standing still below, and smiled. When he was about to speak, Li Tianlan handed him a cigarette and asked casually, "Why are you in Yuzhou?" "I attended a meeting of the army headquarters. The minister was in a hurry to find you, so he asked me to guard here." Thunder God smiled, took the cigarette, and took a deep breath. Li Tianlan nodded and said yes, with a complicated look in his eyes. He still remembered what Li Shi had told him. That year, more than 20 years ago, when he and Dongqing Rushi were just born, it was Thunder God who rushed in and called him his godson. As a result, he took Dongqing Rushi away. Then there was the current Li Tianlan and Emperor Dong's palace. Li Tianlan felt a little helpless. Things had come to this, and he had no opinion on Thunder God. He just thought of the past and looked at Thunder God today, and he inevitably felt a little subtle. "Boy, why are you looking at me like this?" Thunder God scratched his big face inexplicably. "I'm guessing when you will be promoted." Li Tianlan laughed. Hey. Thunder God rubbed his hands and said, "Probably soon. The minister means that this year I am very critical. If I operate well, there is still hope. He said that you have also helped me a lot." Li Tianlan smiled and did not speak. Thunder God was one of the real core members of the Dongqing clan. His parents were Dongqing Hongguang's comrades in arms. After they died in the early years, Dongqing Hongguang took Thunder God back to the clan for adoption, and adopted him as his son. That year Thunder God was only 4 years old. For many years, as one of the core members of the clan, Dongqing Hongguang completely raised Thunder God as his own son. If he had not carried the wrong child, he would probably be Li Tianlan's godfather now. For such a person, if possible, the Dongqing clan would push him up in any case. Now Thunder God was the commander of the Blood Battalion, with the rank of lieutenant general. Although there was still a gap between him and the marshal, in recent years, the Blood Battalion had become extremely important because of the relationship with Tiannan. Thunder God, who had complete control of the Blood Battalion, could be said to be the top real power in the Zhongzhou army headquarters. After Di Jiang resigned, Dong Qingwudi once again served as the commander of the Border Control Corps, but such a part-time job was destined not to last long. At present, there were two candidates for the position of the new commander of the Border Control Corps. One was the old man of the Li family, Eagle King, and the other was Thunder God. Eagle King was originally the only choice, but with a series of changes after Li Tianlan walked out of the desert prison, Thunder God now also had a chance to take the position. The establishment of the new group was destined to leave a large power vacuum in Zhongzhou state. Bai Qingqian joined the new group and took the road of the new group to enter the Zhongzhou parliament, which also meant that the power of the Dongqing clan did not have to worry about Bai Qingqian. This part of the power could completely turn to support Thunder God and let him go further. As for Li Tianlan himself, there was no difference between the Li family and the Dongqing clan. He had never felt that the Li family had treated him badly, let alone that the Dongqing clan had done him wrong. No matter who became the new commander of the Border Control Corps, Eagle King or Thunder God, Li Tianlan had no opinion. However, from the perspective of working together, if Thunder God, who had been with Dong Qingwudi for a long time and was more familiar with the Border Control Corps, could take the position, it would undoubtedly be the best result. I can't guarantee anything now. The situation is too chaotic, and the result is not clear. Let's wait. When the matter in Beihai is over, it can almost be settled. Li Tianlan said softly. Thunder God nodded knowingly. The helicopter landed on the tarmac near the conference room in the Hidden Dragon Sea in the shortest time possible. Thunder God did not go down. Li Tianlan walked alone in the direction of the conference room. The adjournment in the conference room continued. The content of this meeting was extremely sensitive. There were no secretaries or staff inside or outside the conference room. In front of the fish pond at the door of the conference room, several directors were standing there, but they did not speak to each other. They were staring at the fish pond in a daze. Li Tianlan glanced around and did not see Li Huaqing, Chen Fangqing, or Dong Qingwudi. Seeing Li Tianlan appear, everyone's eyes fell on him at once. Zhou Yunhai, the leader of the North Group, who was closest to him, came over with a smile and shook hands with Li Tianlan. When did your majesty arrive in Yuzhou? Just arrived. Before I could take a breath, I was pulled here. Li Tianlan's hand slightly tightened, and his tone was easygoing. You've had a hard journey. Zhou Yunhai patted Li Tianlan's palm. Let's go. Let's have a chat with Senior Zhou. Everyone who saw this scene had mixed feelings, especially the directors of the academics and the Southeast Group. Although the North Group was still the North Group, everyone knew that with the exposure of the military counselor's identity, the North Group was now almost a part of the new group. Although Zhou Yunhai was still the leader of the North Group, his heir was already the backbone of the new group. Such cooperation was completely the integration of the two forces, and it was so stable that no one could see any hope of destruction. Zhou Mulin, another leader of the giant group, was feeding the fish in front of the fish pond. There was only a little fish food left in his hand. The old man moved slowly, as if he could stand like this until it was dark. Senior Zhou. Li Tianlan's voice was full of respect. Every time I see you, I feel old. This feeling has become more and more obvious recently. Zhou Mulin turned around with a smile and looked at Li Tianlan. His voice was a little emotional. Li Tianlan did not know how to answer, so he just smiled. Zhou Mulin was the oldest among the 9 directors. He had passed the age of 70 and was bound to retire after this term. But he was not unwilling. His only son, Zhou Yuanshan, was developing very well in Jiangxia. According to the current momentum, the whole Zhongzhou state would be Li Tianlan and Zhou Yuanshan's world in more than 10 years, unless there was a big accident, such as Li Tianlan's sudden death. Zhou Mulin's face was glowing. He looked at Li Tianlan and said with a smile, "What do you think of this?" In fact, I still don't know what happened. Li Tianlan smiled bitterly. He only knew that there was a big problem in Beijing, but it should not be too serious. Otherwise, this meeting must be a race against time. How could there be an adjournment? His mobile phone had run out of power, and Emperor Dong's palace could not contact him. At present, he was completely in a state of confusion. Zhou Mulan was stunned. Speaking of which, this matter still has something to do with you, Your Majesty. Zhou Yunhai smiled and said softly, "This is the follow-up of the Desert War in Beijiang. The Beijiang army had a big problem. At first, the Beijiang army took the initiative to provoke the Desert War, but the report to the army headquarters was that they were going to conduct a military exercise in the desert. Now the Desert War is over, but there were too many dead. The army headquarters could not take a stand for these dead. After all, this war was not necessary at all. Zhongzhou state could not give all the dead the status of martyrs, nor could it give them the pension they deserved. So the only thing Minister Dongqing did was to approve the request of the Beijiang army for the exercise." Li Tianlan's mouth twitched. Of course he knew about this. It was his request not to give the dead of the Beijiang army the name of martyrs. This also meant that the families of all the dead could not enjoy any of the benefits they deserved after their family members died in the war. This alone was enough to push Huang Tong to a dead end, and then tear a huge wound on Huang Tong that could make the prince group bleed. As for the pension, it was a matter for them to deal with. No matter how he looked at it, the army headquarters had no reason to pay this pension. This was the pension for tens of thousands of people. Zhongzhou state was not stingy with the pension for soldiers. Under normal circumstances, the family of a soldier who died in the war would receive millions of dollars. But the number of dead in the Desert War reached tens of thousands. This pension was so large that it was totally unimaginable. It was hundreds of billions of Zhongzhou state dollars. That was hundreds of billions of Zhongzhou state dollars. From beginning to end, the report of the Beijiang army to the army headquarters was just a military exercise. What the hell did they do to ask for hundreds of billions of pension? The exercise was actually a war? The Beijiang army provoked the war privately. How could they have the face to ask for hundreds of billions of pension? If this pension was paid, it was tantamount to setting an extremely bad precedent. Without reason, without explanation, and without listening to orders, the money was given out. Did they really think that the finance of Zhongzhou state was someone's private vault? As for the Beijiang army, Huang Tong could not afford this money at all, not even 1/10 of it. Li Tianlan took a deep breath and asked, Then, just a few hours ago, a large number of family members rushed into the largest station of the Beijiang army to ask for an explanation. Zhou Yunhai laughed. His smile was full of solemnity. I don't know what Huang Tong was thinking. Not only did he not come forward to explain and stabilize the situation, but he ordered the garrison to shoot and hurt some of the family members of the dead. Li Tianlan's body suddenly shook. He raised his head in shock and said in disbelief, "Shoot. That's the problem." Zhou Yunhai nodded with a solemn face. The injury of several family members caused very serious consequences. The news spread very fast. Now there are tens of thousands of family members in Beijiang, and now all of them are rushing to the station of the Beijiang army to fight the garrison. They are more than 100,000 civilians, and they are the family members of the soldiers. Some of Huang Tong's loyal soldiers in the Beijiang army carried out the order to shoot, but a large number of ordinary soldiers were also enraged by Huang Tong. They took off their uniforms and took up guns to protect the family members of their fallen comrades. Under such circumstances, although there are many family members, Huang Tong's troops have occupied the arsenal of the military region. It has been nearly an hour since the incident happened. No one knows how many people have died in Beijiang. The minister is also in a difficult position. Li Tianlan's face was livid. After a long time, he squeezed out a word from between his teeth. F***ck. No matter how this matter was handled, there would be unimaginable consequences. It was very simple. This was originally a matter of paying or not paying. The Beijiang army could not afford it, and the finance and army headquarters of Zhongzhou state had no reason to pay. Once this precedent was set, a large number of military expenses of Zhongzhou state would be used for some messy things in the future. Not paying? Those family members were bound to start fighting desperately. This problem had already been placed in front of the parliament. But now with the sound of gunfire in Beijiang, the whole thing was completely in a desperate situation. In any case, Huang Tong's order to shoot was incomprehensible. In any case, this matter had to be completely controlled. If those family members were killed by Huang Tong without a reasonable result, which soldier in Zhongzhou State would dare to fight for Zhongzhou State in the future? No. It was no exaggeration at all. Not a single one. Not a single one. Li Tianlan took a deep breath. When he was about to say something, a voice suddenly sounded. Tianlan. Li Tianlan turned his head subconsciously. In front of the conference room, Dongqing Wudi appeared with a livid face. Seeing Li Tianlan, his face eased for a moment, and he nodded. Come in with me. We need to discuss something. Chapter 933. When they walked into the small lounge of the conference room, the atmosphere in the smoke-filled room was oppressive and almost suffocating. Li Huaqing sat on the sofa and took a big drag on his cigarette. His eyebrows were tightly wrinkled, with undisguised anger. Chen Fangqing sat there with a stiff face. There were many cigarette butts in front of him. His lips were dry and cracked, and he looked a little lost. Dongqing Wudi closed the door behind him. A slight noise caught everyone's attention. Chen Fangqing looked back at Li Tianlan. His pupils shrank, and he jumped up as if he had been stimulated. It's him. He pointed at Li Tianlan, and his face was ferocious and resentful. If it weren't for him, everything in the desert wouldn't have happened. He's the culprit of all this. Snap. Li Tianlan moved his body. In Dongqing Wudi's eyes, his body seemed to shake, but Chen Fangqing's body flew out and fell to the ground. Li Tianlan walked slowly to him and looked down at him. Looking down at him with no expression. Are you comfortable? He asked slowly. Chen Fangqing seemed a little confused. He covered his face and looked at Li Tianlan blankly. After a long time he reacted and growled ferociously. Li Tianlan. You. Enough. The corner of Li Huaqing's eyes twitched a few times, and he slammed the armrest of the sofa. Chen Fangqing suddenly roared and rushed toward Li Tianlan desperately. He had suppressed his emotions for too long. At this moment he completely lost control of his emotions. Demeanor? Majesty? Composure? Restraint? Everything disappeared in her heart. His expression was distorted, his eyes were blood-red, and he kept muttering something. He waved his fist directly at Li Tianlan's face. The Prime Minister didn't fight with Dongqing Wudi, but he fought with Li Tianlan. But his movement was almost like a snail in Li Tianlan's eyes. Li Tianlan casually reached out and directly pinched Chen Fangqing's face. Are you done? Li Huaqing's furious roar suddenly rang out. The white mist in Li Tianlan's hand surged for a moment, and he directly pushed Chen Fangqing out. Chen Fangqing's body slammed into the wall as he gasped for air, his eyes filled with hatred. But Dongqing Wudi and Li Huaqing noticed at the same time that the swelling on his face from the slap had disappeared, as if nothing had happened. Li Huaqing secretly sighed and shook his head, not knowing what to say. In a private place, Li Tianlan and Chen Fangqing had been sworn enemies for a long time. Although that slap was shocking, however, there were only a few people present, so it was not a big deal. After this slap, both sides seemed to slowly calm down. Chen Fangqing also seemed to feel the strangeness of his face. He reached out and rubbed his face. In the end, he fell silent and sat on the sofa, not saying a word. Prime Minister, you really have nothing better to do. You're still here trying to shirk responsibility for such a big thing. Are you trying to push the blame onto me so that the northern borderlines matter can be smoothly resolved? The desert was just a drill. Tens of thousands of people died. What does that have to do with me? I don't know anything from beginning to end. Li Tianlan said lightly. We all know that it was a war, a **T drill. You and you. He glared at Dongqing Wudi. You're all playing dumb here. In the past year, the army headquarters has never issued any combat orders to the northern borderline. I'd like to know who issued the combat orders to the northern borderline corps. Dongqing Wudi's expression was cold. It doesn't matter who it is. What matters is who the target is. Chen Fangqing, more than 1,000 elites of Emperor Dong's palace died in the desert. If it weren't for the so-called drill in the northern borderline, none of this would have happened. You want to start a war, kill me, and put the blame on me. Why is it that you want to kill me and I don't resist? Li Tianlan's voice was cold. That's a blockade. That's just a blockade. If Emperor Dong's palace hadn't acted on its own. Acted on its own? Ah. Li Tianlan interrupted Chen Fangqing. His voice was calm. F*CKU. You, Chen Fangqing was stunned. And then he roared angrily again. What did you say? You heard me very clearly. I'm asking about your mother. Li Tianlan said blandly. From the beginning to the end, it was the Northern Borderline Corps who acted on its own. Not to mention Emperor Dong's palace. Any Zhongzhou person has the right to fight back when he is about to be murdered by the power. Chen Fangqing, no one is willing to wait for death. Emperor Dong's palace is like this, and so are you. This is good for Zhongzhou State. You know nothing about the overall situation. Zhongzhou State needs stability and a future. It doesn't need any cancer. Chen Fangqing growled. Such a cancer must be eradicated. No one wanted to kill you in the beginning. If Emperor Dong's palace hadn't reacted so violently, how could there have been a desert war? Don't you know it yourself? An overly powerful Emperor Dong's palace is not a good thing for Zhongzhou State. For the future of Zhongzhou State, for the overall situation, what's wrong with some people dying in Emperor Dong's palace? It's just some people dying. How dare you? F*CKU. Li Tianlan interrupted Chen Fangqing again. It was the same content, the same rudeness. Chen Fangqing's mood was obviously not right, but what he said was clearly from the bottom of his heart. Under normal circumstances, he would never speak his mind. Although it was outrageous, maybe Chen Fangqing thought so in his heart. The overly powerful Wang family of Beihai was a cancer for Zhongzhou State. So what was wrong with weakening and suppressing it? What was wrong with the Wang family of Beihai giving up some things that Zhongzhou State could not tolerate for the overall situation? They should have done that. The gradual rise of Emperor Dong's palace was not in line with the interests of Zhongzhou State. It was just a blockade. As long as they blocked Li Tianlan's channel of news, they could suppress the Wang family of Beihai. After the Wang family of Beihai disappeared, they could subdue Li Tianlan. This was the most beneficial thing for Zhongzhou State. So what if some people died in Emperor Dong's palace? It was just some people dying. They should focus on the overall situation. Li Tianlan had no intention to judge whether Chen Fangqing's thoughts were right or wrong. He could not think in Chen Fangqing's position. But he knew that Chen Fangqing firmly believed that he was right. What he said was almost the truth in his view. Li Tianlan smiled and said indifferently, "It's true that only some people died in Emperor Dong's palace. They are dead and the funeral has been held. There is no way to change it. You have your overall situation and your position. I don't need to say anything more. But obviously, you want to attack Emperor Dong's palace, you want to kill me, you want to kill my woman. You have enough reasons, but you failed. No matter what reasons you have, failure is failure. The situation is already obvious, isn't it? You can't play a role in the future of Zhongzhou State now, but I can. I don't need to be the god of war of Zhongzhou State. As long as I am in Tiannan, I can make the whole dark world, and even any country in the world dare not offend Zhongzhou State. I am the overall situation of Zhongzhou State. So, Prime Minister Chen Fangqing, now the overall situation is so obvious. For the sake of the overall situation, it doesn't matter if some people die in your Chen family, right? His voice was flat and low. In Chen Fangqing's ears, it sounded like a devil's whisper. I have investigated. Those who are related to you, your family, your mother's family, your children, your wife, your cousins, everyone. I have counted. The exact number is 318. Li Tianlan laughed. I can tell you responsibly that Emperor Dong's palace will kill these people, including you one by one. I hope you can focus on the overall situation. For the future of Zhongzhou State, I can only ask your whole family to die. He leaned forward slightly and stared into Chen Fangqing's eyes. No one in your family can escape. No one can protect them. He pointed to his nose. I said so. Chen Fangqing stared at Li Tianlan and said nothing. In fact, he had a lot to say, but in the current situation, he could only say it casually. It was meaningless. Without absolute power, it was useless to say anything. Emperor Dong's palace wanted to kill his whole family. As long as he left this position, Emperor Dong's palace could definitely do it. Chen Fangqing could also say that he wanted to kill Li Tianlan's family. He could say it 10,000 times, but what was the use? Li Tianlan killed Zhu with one strike at the airport. The death of an invincible realm expert had caused an uproar in the dark world. Compared with Li Tianlan's strength to kill the enemy with one strike, many people were concerned about how Li Tianlan found Zhu at the airport. Did this mean that anyone who was hostile to Li Tianlan could not hide in any environment? If so, no one dared to do anything to Li Tianlan again. Chen Fangqing knew very well that with the death of Zhu, an invincible realm expert had fallen in the final battle of Beihai. Everyone was a little dissatisfied with him. Next, it was impossible for them to be persuaded by him to deal with Li Tianlan. If you have talked enough, let's talk about what happened in Beijiang this time. Li Huaqing glanced at Li Tianlan and said calmly, "Tianlan, you talk. The Beijiang Corps has to take all the responsibility." Without any hesitation, Li Tianlan said directly. Li Huaqing narrowed his eyes and said calmly, "Be more specific." Severely punish Commander Huang Tong of the Beijiang Corps. If he hadn't ordered the guards to shoot his family members, the conflict wouldn't have intensified to this extent. If he hadn't acted without authorization, the Desert War wouldn't have happened. He is the culprit of all the incidents. His decision not only caused the Beijiang Corps to lose tens of thousands of soldiers, but also caused turmoil in the entire army headquarters. The impact is too bad. For such a person, there is no need to be polite. He will be punished with treason and executed directly. His entire family will be executed together. This is a warning to everyone to abide by the rules, especially the soldiers. Only the parliament of Zhongzhou State and the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State can lead the soldiers, not the cabinet. In the future, whoever still wants to act on his own will end up like Huang Tong's family. Chen Fangqing's face was livid and unusually ugly. Li Huaqing said expressionlessly, "Go on." All the officers above the rank of Major Colonel who participated in the Desert War, if they die, will be executed without compensation, and their families will not be taken care of. If they are alive, they will be executed, and their families will be put in prison. If a colonel is demoted to a basic officer, he will be expelled from the army and sentenced. This will be publicly announced to the entire Zhongzhou State. All the deputy officers of the Beijiang Corps will be executed. Middle-level officers will be removed from their posts and investigated. Those with questionable stances will be put in prison. What happened today? All the guards who shot at the families of the deceased will be executed. This may not be merciful, but there is no camera here, and there is no need to emphasize this point. The Beijiang Corps must set an example and punish them severely, so that everyone understands the consequences of not abiding by the rules. I will never agree. Chen Fangqing suddenly stood up and roared with a livid face. Li Tianlan rarely spoke so much, but there was an almost brutal coldness and killing intent between the lines of these words. The series of executions almost chilled people's hearts to the bone. If all this was really carried out according to the way he said, his status in the Prince Group and in Zhongzhou State would be reduced to the bottom. With Dongqing Wudi's current position, his power would be more consolidated, and the orders of the army headquarters would be more unimpeded. And in the Prince Group, all the generals would probably consider leaving the Prince Group, and the strength of the Prince Group would also be greatly weakened as never before. Chen Fangqing could not agree to this in any case. And then, Li Huaqing looked up at Li Tianlan and asked slowly, "If we do as you said, what about the families? What about the pension?" That was hundreds of billions of pension, which was not a small amount for any country. Basically, a large war of a superpower was just this amount of pension. Of course, Zhongzhou State could afford this money, but the key was why it should be taken out. This was completely inexplicable and unnecessary expenditure. It was all because of the unauthorized action of the Beijiang Corps. They reported to the army headquarters that it was a maneuver. In any case, Dongqing Wudi could not pay for the maneuver of the Beijiang Corps. As he said why. If he paid this time, it was estimated that in the future, there would be people in all theaters of operations who dared to disobey the army headquarters. Because in any case, the army headquarters would pay the bill. The military expenditure of Zhongzhou State was not used for this. As for Chen Fangqing's cabinet, he wanted to pay the money, but he could only think about it. If the Zhongzhou State Finance Department paid the money, he would probably step down the next day. Zhongzhou State was rich, but it could not pay the money. But the problem of pension had become like this, and it had evolved into a problem related to the foundation of Zhongzhou State. More than 100,000 families deserved attention. At this moment, presumably all the soldiers in Zhongzhou State were paying attention to this matter. The money could not be paid, but the pension had to be paid. Emperor Dong's palace can take out the pension and pay it in one lump sum, Li Tianlan said. His voice was calm, indifferent, and confident. It was a feeling that could really make people understand what it meant to be rich and powerful. Dong Chengwudi glanced at Li Tianlan. Li Huaqing fell silent. Chen Fangqing suddenly froze. Li Tianlan paid this pension? This huge pension of hundreds of billions of yuan? To the people of Beijiang? For a moment, an indescribable chill rose from Chen Fangqing's heart. He suddenly understood what Li Tianlan meant. This pension was to be given to the people of Beijiang. It was not to be given to Beijiang. According to Li Tianlan's way of dealing with it, all the people in Beijiang who opposed him were dead. This money bought the attitude of all the soldiers of Zhongzhou State. It bought the hearts of hundreds of thousands of families of the deceased. It bought a brand new Beijiang that was completely under Li Tianlan's control. To be exact, Li Tianlan wanted to buy more than 1 million square kilometers of land in the entire Beijiang with hundreds of billions of yuan. Chen Fangqing's body suddenly shook. He seemed to want to roar again, but his body suddenly felt weak. He slumped on the sofa and kept shaking his head, murmuring, "This can't be. It can't be like this. Li Tianlan, you are stealing the country." Li Tianlan was expressionless and said calmly, "In any case, Huang Tong and his family must die." He looked down at his watch and said faintly, "Wuqing is already on the way." Li Huaqing suddenly looked up and noticed that Li Tianlan was only wearing a white shirt at this time. He didn't realize there was a problem at first, but until Li Tianlan reminded him, he suddenly realized that Li Tianlan was only wearing a thin shirt. The black windbreaker with complicated golden patterns was already on the way. Chapter 934. Gunshots, explosions, angry roars, screams, buildings collapsing, and people rushing. Countless voices reverberated in the huge study room, like a chaotic and complicated symphony. Blood was everywhere on the screen. Twisted, desperate, angry, and sad faces crossed each other. People kept falling, and bullets streaked across the screen from different directions. Suddenly, the guards' dormitory collapsed in a huge explosion. Thick smoke rose, and fire rose to the sky. The station was full of chaotic people, fighting, tearing, shooting, and murder. The endless blood stimulated people's hearts, and everyone almost lost their minds. The raging tide of people was destroying everything around them. Huang Tong sat on the sofa in a daze, watching the chaotic scene outside through the screen. His face was pale, but he had a perverted smile on his face. He kept muttering to himself, "Not enough. Not enough. Go to hell. All of you go to hell. Hee 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 ha 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 ha." Yang Xiaoqing stood beside Huang Tong, his eyes filled with pity. If the hellish tragedy in front of him was a drama, Huang Tong was undoubtedly one of the main characters in this drama. Someone was the director behind the scenes, pushing the main character to the front. With just a few orders, everything happened naturally. Huang Tong's laughter echoed in the study room, his voice getting sharper. "Look at this old man, he was shot at least twice in the head. He died a horrible death. Ha! Why is this young woman rushing forward? She looks like she hasn't been married for long. She's very young. Did her husband die? Or did her brother die? I don't know if she has children. Oh, she's fallen. These people are really cruel. Blood, haha, there's blood. They stepped over her. Oh, she's still struggling. Dead. Stepped into meat paste. What a pity. I don't know if she has children. What a pity. There's another one over there. He's a student, right? He looks familiar. Why do I feel like I've seen him before? The family of a dead officer? How naive. Is he here to show off the hot-bloodedness of a young man? Oh, his family is next to him. He's going to die. Bang, shot in the leg. His marksmanship is too bad. He should have been shot in the head. Hit the head. He's saved. They're lucky. Oh, and over there. Explosion, boom, he's dead. Ha 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 ha. Huang Tong waved his hands and feet as he laughed. His body trembled as he bent over, clutching his stomach as he laughed incessantly. All of them deserve to die, a bunch of pitiful creatures, damn pitiful creatures. They all deserve to die, don't they? Ha 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 ha. He kept smiling, but the rims of his eyes gradually turned red. Huang Tong abruptly turned his head and glared at the expressionless Yang Xiaoqing. Say something. Did they deserve to die? King, say something. Yang Xiaoqing silently looked at the crazed Huang Tong. You pity them. They are civilians of Zhongzhou State. They were civilians. I am a soldier, a military officer. I was the one who gave the order to shoot and kill the civilians of my own country. Huang Tong's eyes were bloodshot as he roared crazily. He panted heavily for a long time before he sat down on the sofa. He covered his face with both hands and sobbed. I'm a soldier. His voice trembled with undisguised regret and pain. Yang Xiaoqing was indifferent. This is a necessary sacrifice. Huang Tong abruptly raised his head, his blood-red eyes staring at Yang Xiaoqing. A necessary sacrifice. It was this sentence again. Before the Desert War, Chen Fangqing had said this to him. Yang Xiaoqing also said this to him before he gave the order to shoot. He was actually moved by this sentence twice. Huang Tong smiled bitterly. Are you so at ease? This is a necessary sacrifice. Yang Xiaoqing's face was expressionless. Besides, you gave the order to shoot them. Huang Tong gritted his teeth and closed his eyes in pain. He did give the order. Except for a few people involved, no one in Zhongzhou State could believe that Huang Tong would give such an order. Even the council members couldn't believe it. But Huang Tong just did it. When the first bullet hit the family members, when it happened to the family members, everything was already irreversible. Without such an order, the family members would be dissatisfied, but as long as they could find a way, things could always be delayed until Zhongzhou State could come up with a proper solution. Although this was not the best plan, at least it could stabilize the situation. But a stable situation was not what Jiang Shan wanted. So under his instigation, Huang Tong gave the most insane order to shoot the family members. This was the last thing he needed to do. He would completely detonate the chaotic situation. When it was out of everyone's control, Jiang Shan would arrange for him and his family to leave Zhongzhou State. And everything in Beijiang would be completely taken over by Jiang Shan. Huang Tong had no choice. For such an order, he would feel guilty, uneasy, and afraid. But compared with that, he wanted to keep himself and his family alive. It's almost time. Yang Xiaoqing suddenly said, General, use heavy firepower. Huang Tong jumped up as if he was scared and subconsciously retorted, It's not the time yet. It's not up to you to decide. Yang Xiaoxiong said blandly, The speaker is already on his way. Before that, we have to do everything we can. It's not the time now. Maybe in half an hour, you won't be able to hold the arsenal in the station. Now, please give the order immediately. Huang Tong stared at Yang Xiaoxiong and suddenly said, You're such a good dog. Yang Xiaoxiong looked at Huang Tong expressionlessly and did not speak. Huang Tong suddenly picked up the phone and dialed a number. There were a lot of heavy weapons in the arsenal of the army station. Once they were used, they could cause devastating damage to the current battle situation. Once this order was given, the situation would be completely out of control. This was undoubtedly what Jiang Shan wanted most. He was the speaker of Beijiang. No one would blame him if something happened to the army without warning. At this time, he must have gotten the full power to deal with this incident. Full power. It also meant that the more chaotic the situation was, the more power Jiang Shan had. The phone rang twice. A fierce and ferocious voice sounded. General, it's me. What should I do? This is the last order. After it's done, come here immediately. We'll leave Zhongzhou State together. Now you let... Whoosh! A soft voice suddenly rang out. Huang Tong opened his mouth and wanted to give the order. But when his lips opened and closed, he suddenly couldn't say a word. Countless warm liquids seemed to suddenly spurt out from his throat. He opened his mouth hard, but he couldn't make any sound. A hard-to-look-at light penetrated the villa of the commander of Beijiang army in an instant. The sharp light penetrated the window and tore Huang Tong's throat. Without any pause, it penetrated Yang Xiaoxiong's body again. The sharp sword energy was mighty and everywhere. The flying light penetrated from one side of the villa. Without any pause, it penetrated from the other side and disappeared in an instant. Huang Tong's body stiffened as he touched his throat. Copious amounts of blood dripped from his neck into his hand. Huang Tong's pupils suddenly contracted. He slowly turned his head in disbelief and glanced at Yang Xiaoxiong. Yang Xiaoxiong's expressionless face was already full of horror. He took a careful step forward. Bang! In the dull sound, countless drops of blood burst out of Yang Xiaoxiong's body. His body turned into minced meat in the blink of an eye, and blood splashed everywhere. Huang Tong looked at it in horror, but he couldn't make any sound. He felt that his body was splitting madly with indescribable pain. His head, neck, limbs, and torso. The sharp sword energy penetrated through his body and cut everything in his body without any hesitation. There was no sound. The phone in Huang Tong's hand fell to the ground. A large number of body parts appeared in the book again. In the room. Hello. Hello. General? You. On the phone, the ruthless voice said hello twice. He seemed to want to say something, but his voice instantly fell silent. The chaotic voice sounded in the phone for a moment, and then the arsenal on the other end of the phone became dead silent again. Boom. In just a few seconds, a deafening roar suddenly sounded in the chaotic battlefield. The ferocious guards, angry soldiers, and desperate families stopped almost at the same time, and looked at everything in front of them in shock. The huge crowd had pushed into the high-rise residential area of the Beijiang army's encampment. More than 10 villas stood quietly in the courtyard with birds chirping and fragrant flowers, with the smell of power. When the battle was at its most intense, a light appeared in everyone's sight. That colorful and dazzling light came from the distant sky and silently passed through the crowd. All the guards in front of him were instantly dismembered, and a large number of corpses suddenly appeared on the battlefield. The light did not stop at all. It flew over the battlefield and rushed directly into the high-rise residential area. Fast. It was unimaginably fast. No one's consciousness could keep up with the light. The light rushed through the high-rise residential area and rose into the sky in an instant. With an endless sharp colorful arc, it went straight into the sky and disappeared in an instant. Everyone stopped subconsciously. In the huge silence, the sudden roar was simply earth-shattering. In everyone's sight, the villas where the high-level officials of the army lived collapsed in an instant. Smoke and dust rose all over the sky. From beginning to end, every villa became a ruin. Zhongzhou State. Hidden Dragon Sea. In the conference room, the directors who had reconvened the meeting watched this scene quietly through the screen. Everyone's heart was extremely cold, because of the inexplicable chaos on the battlefield, and because of the sudden appearance of the light. Every time people saw Ruthless, their hearts would be extremely cold. It was a kind of annihilation and killing without any emotional fluctuations. Before that light, it seemed that the whole world was extremely fragile. Li Tianlan sat in the conference room. He sat opposite Li Huacheng. He sat in the position that once belonged to Wang Tianzong alone. He withdrew his eyes from the screen and said lightly, "Now part of the problem has been solved. Minister Dongqing and I will immediately leave for Beijiang and solve this matter completely." Li Huacheng was about to speak when there was a sudden commotion on the silent screen. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and raised his eyebrows slightly. The chaotic crowd was completely separated. On the screen, Jiang Shan, who was in a hurry with anger and anxiety, appeared on the screen under the protection of the crowd. Li Tianlan frowned and suddenly felt a little uneasy. Everyone's eyes were focused on the screen again. They watched Jiang Shan walk to the highest position on the battlefield on the screen. They watched him face all the soldiers and their families. They watched him bow to everyone. They watched him mercilessly denounce the crazy practices of Huang Tong and the Beijiang army. They watched him give a speech to calm people's hearts. Everything was going according to plan. It was steady and quiet. It looked like a natural performance. Jiang Shan's voice echoed in the whole conference room. It was powerful and firm. "Please rest assured that the pension you are concerned about will be in place." Beijiang will take this matter as a top priority. They are all martyrs who sacrifice for the country. They should be taken care of by Zhongzhou State and Beijiang. I promise in my own name that the pension will be in place as soon as possible. His voice was low and firm. If Zhongzhou State can't give this money, then Beijiang will be fully responsible for it. I am the speaker of Beijiang. If Zhongzhou State doesn't give this money, I will give it to you. Everyone's expression suddenly changed. Li Tianlan suddenly stood up with a livid face. Chapter 935. At 3:00 in the afternoon, Li Tianlan followed Dongqing Wudi out of the conference room in the Hidden Dragon Sea in silence. The meeting was over, but the result was extremely strange. Jiang Shan took all the responsibilities. The parliament gave him full power, and this power was fully exerted in his hands. The chaos in the army station had completely subsided. People in Beijiang began to count the losses. The corpses of Huang Tong, Yang Shaoqing, and others were sorted out. In front of the corpses, Jiang Shan once again gave a long speech, summary and promise. On behalf of Beijiang, he promised all the families that the Parliament of Beijiang would be responsible for the pension of the war dead, and provide various care for their families. Jiang Shan said a lot. From the beginning to the end, the council members almost watched the whole process. But neither Li Huaqing nor Li Tianlan said a word. When Jiang Shan's speech was over, the meeting in Yuzhou was also over. There was no way not to end it. Jiang Shan did all the things he should and shouldn't do, made all the promises, and took all the responsibilities. There was no more detailed and full power than this. When he finished, the council members found that they didn't even have to go to Beijiang. In fact, that was the case. Until Jiang Shan's speech was over, he cut off the communication with the parliament. Jiang Shan didn't mention letting the leaders of the parliament go to Beijiang, nor did he mention any financial subsidies in the situation to the parliament. It was a feeling of being really calculated. All the emotions were suppressed in his heart. From beginning to end, Li Tianlan's expression was extremely cold. Jiang Shan's move was a little sudden. Sitting in the car, the driver started the car, and Dongqing Wudi, who had been silent for a long time, finally spoke. "No one can take away my things." Li Tianlan's voice was light, but his words seemed to be mixed with a gust of ice wind. "My things." He put extra emphasis on these words. On the first night he walked out of the desert prison, or to be exact, when he was still sorting out the corpses of the members of Emperor Dong's palace in the desert, he had already valued Beijiang. It was about 1/6 of the area of Zhongzhou State. It was the largest province in Zhongzhou State, vast and sparsely populated, with infinite possibilities. So when he spoke to Dongqing Wudi on the phone that night, he made a request. The war dead of the Beijiang Corps could not get the title of martyr, nor could they get pension. For Zhongzhou State, the former was more important. For the families of those who died in the war, the latter was more important. Moreover, the Beijiang Army Corps started the Desert War, but the report to the army headquarters was a maneuver. This was completely an act of its own initiative, involving hundreds of billions of compensation. It was basically impossible for Zhongzhou State to let the finance department pay this money, let alone from the military budget. However, if they did not fork out this sum of money, the families of the tens of thousands of dead would definitely not let it go. The surviving soldiers of the Northern Frontier Army would also have thoughts in their hearts. But this could not be blamed on Zhongzhou State or Li Tianlan, because the operation of the northern borderline was initially reported as a drill. It was just a drill. If they couldn't get the compensation, all the family members and the surviving soldiers of the Northern Borderline Army would vent their hatred and resentment on Huang Tong and the Northern Borderline Army. This was undoubtedly the result that Li Tianlan wanted. Huang Tong's fate was destined to be incomparably miserable. The resentment and hatred of hundreds of thousands of his family members and countless soldiers would be enough to tear Huang Tong into pieces at the right time. This was also the result that Li Tianlan wanted. Everything started with Huang Tong's death. The loss of control of Beijiang and the hearts of the Northern Borderline Army could tear a huge wound inside the Prince Group. And when the situation became critical, Emperor Dong's palace would take the opportunity to solve the problem of Zhongzhou State's compensation. Although this astronomical figure was not small for the current Emperor Dong's palace, taking it out was far more than a serious blow. Huang Tong's death let countless people vent their resentment. Emperor Dong's palace did not care about the loss of the Desert War, and began to contribute money and manpower. Li Tianlan's purpose was very clear, which was to buy people's hearts. Once the money was in place, at least the northern borderline army would be completely under the control of Emperor Dong's palace. After that, Emperor Dong's palace would continue to strengthen its control over Beijiang by a series of means. Just as Chen Fangqing said. When this sum of money was spent, with some other actions, Li Tianlan bought the entire Beijiang province with these hundreds of billions of yuan. At that time, the army headquarters of Zhongzhou State would still not become the martyr of the northern borderline army. But after taking control of Beijiang, Li Tianlan would give the families of the war dead the treatment that the martyrs deserved, not the standards of Zhongzhou State, but the standards of Emperor Dong's palace. This would be extremely attractive. It was entirely possible that most of the hundreds of thousands of families of the war dead would stay in Beijiang and contribute to the future development of Beijiang. Stealing the country? Li Tianlan did not think so, but he had to admit that once this idea was realized, Beijiang would indeed be freer, more sensitive, and more powerful than it was now. Li Tianlan originally planned to start this plan after the decisive battle in Beijiang. Today's Emperor Dong's palace did not lack talents, nor did the giant group. If the two sides cooperated to promote this plan, the implementation would definitely be very smooth. There was no problem with this plan, the layout, the financial resources, and even more so with this plan. But Li Tianlan did not expect that there would be such a serious problem in time. It was almost exactly the same plan as him. But it was not Emperor Dong's palace that carried out this plan. Jiang Shan. It was Jiang Shan, the speaker of Beijiang. No one could have thought that the other party would be so crazy and radical. Li Tianlan did not expect that there would be someone else besides him, and the Wang family of Beihai, who dared to have such an idea. But there was no doubt that when everyone was unprepared, Jiang Shan's big gamble succeeded. He was the speaker of Beijiang, and had a natural advantage over Emperor Dong's palace. Now almost all the steps of Li Tianlan's plan were in place by Jiang Shan. This seemed impossible. But at this stage, no one could stop Jiang Shan from doing this. This time it was too sensitive. It was no longer a matter of Beijiang, but the morale of the entire Zhongzhou state. In any case, it had to be solved quickly. For Li Tianlan, this was a complete failure. But the funny thing was that such a failure was not due to strategy, resources, or strength. It was due to time. That was all. It was almost the same plan and idea. The only difference was that Jiang Shan used his identity as the speaker, so he moved faster, more decisive, and more ruthless. Li Tianlan leaned against the back of the car, took a deep breath, and suddenly said, "Minister." "Go ahead." Dongqing Wudi said yes. "Where does Beijiang get so much money?" Li Tianlan asked slowly. In Jiang Shan's speech, he repeatedly emphasized that if Zhongzhou State did not give the pension, then Beijiang would pay the money. This sentence appeared many times, which was tantamount to pushing himself and Beijiang to the opposite side of the parliament. But when the family members who were a little desperate and out of control heard this sentence, they would undoubtedly recognize Beijiang province more. But with the financial situation of Beijiang, how could they come up with hundreds of billions of pension at a time? The normal operation of a province required money in all aspects, including countless projects, salaries of civil servants, and research funds. The funds of various departments were various. The reason why Beijiang had such a special position in the territory of Zhongzhou State was not because of its developed economy, but because of its sensitive situation. In theory, it was impossible for Beijiang to come up with the money. After all, only looking at the economic development, Beijiang could not compare with Wuyue, Huading, Nanyue, and Jiangzhou at all. This is what we can't figure out. Dongqing Wudi shook his head slowly. But since Jiang Shan can make a promise, he must have a way. Maybe it's foreign funds. His voice was a little cold. Jiang Shan. After murmuring to himself, Dongqing Wudi sneered. I really looked down on him before. A dog that bites doesn't show its teeth. This time I've learned something new. Check it out. Li Tianlan said in a low voice. I'll ask the Flourishing Age Fund to cooperate. First, find out the source of his funds. Jiang Shan can't be behind him. If you're right, it's foreign funds. Li Tianlan thought of Chen Fengqing's evaluation and smiled. Jiang Shan is really a thief of the country. Dongqing Wudi nodded, thought for a moment and said slowly, don't act rashly in Beijiang. Li Tianlan said. Dongqing Wudi breathed a sigh of relief. He was afraid that Li Tianlan was young and aggressive, unwilling to accept this failure. Such a failure was really inexplicable. There was nothing wrong with him, but Jiang Shan, who interfered, directly occupied the right time, place and people. This was undoubtedly the most frustrating thing. If Li Tianlan couldn't stand this and did something, the situation in Beijiang was bound to be more chaotic. I can't do anything, can I? Li Tianlan smiled. I'm afraid the president won't support me to do anything. Before figuring out who is behind Jiang Shan, I can only wait and see. The timing chosen by the other party is a little strange. Don't you think it's a little hasty? Li Tianlan thought for a while and finally shook his head. I guess he's also planning something? But he narrowed his eyes. Since the other party has the courage to take Beijiang, even if he's planning something, he must have reached the final stage. If he wasn't determined to go from behind the scenes to the front, he wouldn't have acted so crazily. So the person behind Jiang Shan will definitely appear in front of everyone in the near future. Just wait and see. I still say the same thing. Li Tianlan said calmly, no one can take away my things. Dongqing Wudi reached out and patted Li Tianlan on the shoulder without saying anything. What's your next plan? He asked. Li Tianlan was silent for a moment and looked at Dongqing Wudi. His eyes were a little complicated. Li Shi will join Emperor Dong's palace and should go back to Tiannan with me, Li Tianlan said quietly. Take them back and then go to Beihai. This game has been going on for so long. It's time to end it. Climax. Chapter 936. Returning to the sanatorium, Li Tianlan saw a very strange scene without any psychological preparation. The floor where Li Shi was located was still quiet. The brisk footsteps echoed in the floor. Li Tianlan was not close, but he could feel that the other party was happy or even excited just by listening to the footsteps. Li Shi? Or Li Qingcheng? Li Tianlan felt a little inexplicable. When he stepped on the steps, an unexpected figure suddenly appeared in his sight. He was holding a pot of boiling water in his left hand, and a large number of snacks in his right hand. He was well-dressed, gentle, and did not look aggressive, but his temperament would never be ignored. He was handsome, elegant, and gentle like jade. When Li Tianlan walked into the corridor, he didn't seem to notice it at all. His handsome face seemed to be thinking about something, and he kept grinning foolishly. Their gazes met in midair. His face suddenly stiffened, then solidified, and finally turned into guilt and embarrassment. Li Tianlan stared at him strangely. Why are you here? Aren't you recuperating? Ahem. Lin Yuxian coughed and tried to calm down his embarrassment. During this time, the strange image of a silly boy to Li Tianlan began to disappear, and became familiar to Li Tianlan. Well, I've been bored in the house for a long time, so I came out to take a walk. Li Tianlan opened his eyes and looked at him speechlessly. It was understandable that he came out to take a walk after being bored for a long time. But he came out to take a walk and suddenly walked thousands of kilometers? After recuperating in Tiannan, he felt bored, so he came to Yuzhou? You've really gone far. Li Tianlan sneered subconsciously. Ha he ha ha, Lin Yuxian laughed dryly. When did you come? Li Tianlan asked and took the hot water and snacks from Lin Yuxian's hand. But he did not expect that Lin Yuxian would not let go of them, as if they were treasures, and he wanted to hide them behind him quietly. I can do it. Well, I just arrived and had breakfast in Yuzhou. Li Tianlan paused, and his eyes became more and more strange. Had breakfast in Yuzhou? Yesterday, Lin Yuxian was still recuperating in Tiannan. That was to say, he had set off for Yuzhou in the middle of the night? Counting the time, it seemed that as soon as he left for Kunlun City, Lin Yuxian had already begun to arrange a plane to come to Yuzhou. Kunlun City? At this time, Li Tianlan's heart suddenly moved slightly. He looked at Lin Yuxian carefully, and did not speak for a long time. Lin Yuxian became more and more uncomfortable. He coughed and said, "If there is nothing else, I will leave." He carried his things, and was about to go downstairs. "Are you here for Li Qingqing?" Li Tianlan looked at Lin Yuxian up and down, and his tone was a little weird. Lin Yuxian's face stiffened, and he subconsciously wanted to deny it. But when he thought of his purpose of coming and what he was doing now, it was obviously unreliable to hide it. He coughed and said softly, "I think I have hope. What do you think?" "Are you serious?" Li Tianlan laughed and seemed to find it interesting. "You know each other before? I don't remember meeting you. I've seen him once. Back then in Huading. When we ambushed Gu Qianchuan, we met Gu Xingyun. At that time, Li Qingqing was by Gu Xingyun's side, and I stabbed her with a sword. Have you forgotten?" Lin Yuxian complained. "Your memory is really bad." "It seems so. We met once." "Tut. Love at first sight?" Li Tianlan blinked and said, "You are so vulgar. Love at first sight. Bullshit. What is vulgar?" Lin Yuxian looked angry. "When you saw my sister, didn't you fall in love at first sight?" "Of course not," Li Tianlan said confidently. He seemed to think of his first meeting with Qin Weibai, and a smile gradually appeared at the corner of his mouth. "At that time, your sister fell in love with me at first sight." Lin Yuxian gritted his teeth and said angrily, "F***CKU. Young man, be careful what you say." Li Tianlan patted Lin Yuxian, who was older than him, and said earnestly, "Isn't it my sister that you want to pursue now?" A sister-in-law was also a sister. There was nothing wrong with it. Li Tianlan laughed and said, "Qingqing also calls me brother-in-law. Yuxian, call me brother-in-law. Yuxian, I will fully support you." "Sister. Sister, your sister. Let's go." Lin Yuxian slapped Li Tianlan's palm angrily. After Qin Weibai became the Qin patriarch of the Lin clan, Lin Yuxian called her sister and Li Tianlan brother-in-law, but only once. It was more like a situation of recognition. After all, Lin Yuxian was 2 years older than Li Tianlan. But now, if he really pursued Li Qingqing, he would definitely call him brother-in-law in the future. This was his king brother-in-law. What kind of mess is this? Lin Yuxian shook his head in confusion, and turned to go downstairs. "The ward is here. Where are you going?" Li Tianlan was a little confused. "Qingqing is taking Auntie downstairs for a breath of fresh air." Lin Yuxian said, "I'm getting them some snacks." He raised the kettle in his hand and said, "I can make a pot of tea." "What a lackey." Li Tianlan praised sincerely, as if he had discovered Lin Yuxian's new attribute. When he was the heir of the Lin clan, he did not expose this attribute, nor when he served as the commander of the Nightmare Legion. But when he met Li Qingqing, this attribute was directly exposed, which was totally worth it. "Get out," Lin Yuxian glared. "I can't help it even if I want to get out. I also want to go over and talk to them." Li Tianlan went downstairs slowly and said, "You have to be careful. My relationship with them is much better than their relationship with you. Tut, you stabbed them with a sword at that time. What a sin. With that sword, you can't lick them back even if you lick them for a year. F***CK, if I hadn't helped you that year, help me stab Li Qingqing with a sword? Are you crazy? I made a mistake. That sword was aimed at Gu Xingyun. That's a good excuse." Lin Yuxian was so angry that he couldn't speak. After a moment of silence, his face suddenly changed slightly, revealing a smile. "I heard that Li Shi is going to join Emperor Dong's palace? Will Qingqing also go to Tiannan in the future? Do you really plan to fight a protracted war? Lick them until the end, and you will have everything. Don't you have nothing? If you talk like this, we really can't be brothers. Who is your brother? I am your brother-in-law." The two went all the way downstairs and walked into the garden behind the inpatient building. A small pavilion was located in the middle of the garden. The cold winter wind blew over and refreshed the mind. Li Tianlan completely saw the way of survival, and strong desire to survive of a liquor. Lin Yuxian carried things all the way and trotted into the pavilion. His smile was bright. He opened the snacks and arranged the tea set. He almost called her aunt, and his voice was unbelievably eager. Li Shi obviously noticed something. She looked at Lin Yuxian thoughtfully, and her smile was somewhat meaningful. Li Qingqing opened a bottle of yogurt and sipped it. Her clear eyes fell on Lin Yuxian, and listened to him chatting with her mother. You are still injured. Why do you run so fast? Li Tianlan walked into the pavilion. Sarcasm was sarcasm, but he did not hesitate to help. It's just a minor injury. It doesn't matter. It's cold. This tea tastes good when it is freshly brewed. Lin Yuxian smiled and coughed. Li Shi took a deep look at Lin Yuxian, and her eyes shifted from him to Li Tianlan. Li Shi had put down the yogurt and stood up subconsciously, a little reserved. All the way from Kunlun City to Yuzhou, the taciturn Li Tianlan had left a deep impression on her. The majestic and seemingly limitless sword energy pushed her all the way over mountains and rivers, and the whole world seemed to be under his feet. She stood there a little nervously, and her heart was full of awe. Her fingers seemed to be gently touched and pinched. Li Qingqing turned her head subconsciously and looked at Lin Yuxian curiously. Lin Yuxian handed over a small bag of beautifully packaged snacks. His voice was calm and gentle. This is delicious. Try it. Thank you. Li Shi looked at Li Tianlan silently. After a long time she spoke softly. You're welcome. Li Tianlan waved his hand. In the future, Kunlun City will not threaten you. Li Qingqing, who had been pulled to sit down by Lin Yuxian, stood up again. She looked at Li Tianlan, and her eyes were a little evasive. She hesitated and said, How is he? She was not reluctant to leave Kunlun City. But no matter what, however, in terms of blood relationship, Gu Xingyan was her biological father. If not, when Lin Yuxian stabbed Gu Xingyan with his sword, she would not have subconsciously stood in front of Gu Xingyan to protect him. He is not dead yet, Li Tianlan said calmly. But from now on, Kunlun City should slowly disappear, and the living space of the Gu family in Zhongzhou State will also be compressed. Li Qingqing was lost in thought and silent. Li Shi pulled her daughter's hand, looked at Li Tianlan and whispered, The poison in Qingqing's body. What poison? Li Qingqing was stunned. Li Shi hesitated and did not speak. Li Tianlan glanced at her. I didn't ask Gu Xingyan for the antidote. In fact, in the situation at that time, even if I asked, Gu Xingyan would not give it. In his heart, since he was finished, it might be the best for you to die with him. He shook his head and laughed sarcastically. But this is not a problem. Today you rest for a day. Tomorrow, I will ask Yuxian to take you to Tiannan. You can go to Little Bai. Qingqing can go to Yudonglai and Elder Yu. They will help you solve the problem of the poison and spiritual suggestion. That poison is very troublesome. Li Shi frowned. That kind of neurotoxin was almost the only way Kunlun City used to control men of sacrifice and some special people. Of course, Li Shi also knew Yu Donglai, the poison doctor active in the era of Li Honghe. She even met him often when she was in the Li family. But no matter how powerful Yu Donglai was, how could he develop the antidote in a short time? If the poison in Kunlun City was so easy to remove, then such a poison would not have the significance of controlling men of sacrifice. I know, Li Tianlan said. Don't worry, Elder Yu has a way. Suddenly a phone rang. Lin Yuxian took out his mobile phone, raised his eyebrows, and connected it at the first time. Dad. He is with me. Yes, okay. Lin Yuxian said a few words and handed the phone to Li Tianlan. It's my dad's phone. He said he couldn't get in touch with you, so he called me. He wants to meet you. After a pause, Lin Yuxian said, To say goodbye. Climax. Chapter 937. When Li Tianlan arrived at the airport, it was less than 40 minutes before Lin Fengting's plane took off. His decision to leave Zhongzhou State was sudden, but Li Tianlan and Emperor Dong's palace were not the same as before. After absorbing the intelligence channels of Samsara Palace, Li Tianlan already knew the reason why he wanted to leave Zhongzhou State on the way here. In the afternoon, the airport was noisy and lively. Li Tianlan went all the way to the VIP area and saw Lin Fengting drinking coffee and waiting for the plane to take off in a quiet cafe. Lin Fengting also saw him and waved his hand with a smile. Li Tianlan walked over and sat down. He took the menu from Lin Fengting and ordered a cup of coffee. I decided to leave at the last minute and was in a hurry, so I had to trouble you to come here. Otherwise, I actually planned to go to the sanatorium to see Li Shi. How is she? Lin Fengting said with a smile. His words were very polite. The identity of an elder was actually a little vague between them. Lin Fengting was modest and did not value this identity very much. In fact, Emperor Dong's palace and Li Tianlan could be said to be the top force and the top strength in the dark world. Such a person, no matter how young he was, needed to be respected, at least not too casually. Not bad. Li Tianlan shook his head. But the injury is still too serious. It takes a long time to recuperate, and it is unlikely that she will recover her combat capability in a short time. It's not bad. Lin Fengting was a little emotional. Li Shi, he shook his head. The two were friends many years ago. If there were not so many things later, their friendship should be very good now. Lin Fengting laughed at himself and suddenly said, "How is the matter in Beijiang?" It was hard to make what happened publicly a real secret. The chaos in Beijiang had spread throughout Zhongzhou state, and then the whole world. It was no exaggeration to say that countless forces were paying attention to the situation in Beijiang. Li Tianlan's facial muscles twitched slightly, and he said slowly, "Jiang Shan intervened in the affairs of the Beijiang Corps, and promised an astronomical amount of compensation. This time, Emperor Dong's palace was set up and suffered a heavy loss." This was Li Tianlan's real thought. It could be said that he was determined to win everything in Beijiang. If the chaos in Beijiang had not happened today, then after the final battle in Beijiang, Li Tianlan would have detonated everything with his own hands and pushed the whole thing to the situation he wanted. The entire northern frontier was an important part of his empire's territory. The vast area meant a large number of secret bases. The tough folk customs meant a steady stream of combatants. The extremely rich mineral resources in Beijiang could be turned into economic resources that could be slowly developed. The farming area ranked first in Zhongzhou state meant that Li Tianlan could rely on Beijiang to solve the problem of insufficient farming area in Tiannan and focus on the development of the tertiary industry. With the participation of the Flourishing Age Fund, Emperor Dong's palace had no shortcomings in a short time. But if the development plan was planned for hundreds or even hundreds of years, Beijiang was undoubtedly the best base in Tiannan. Although hundreds of billions of compensation was shocking, if this money was used to buy Beijiang, it would definitely be a profitable business. It was such a great opportunity, but it was ruined because of time. Jiangshan was the first to conquer the northern borderline. It was like taking a piece of flesh out of Li Tianlan's heart. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was a heavy loss. Jiangshan. Lin Fengting was a little surprised, but also a little relieved. If it's him, it's indeed much more convenient than you. No, it's much more convenient. As the old chairman deeply rooted in Beijiang, Jiangshan completely occupied the right time, place and people in this incident. The things that Li Tianlan needed some time to operate secretly were not a problem for Jiangshan at all. Those things were even things that he already had, so it was justifiable. Li Tianlan may be on the Beijiang issue. Think about what to do. Jiangshan directly skipped this step. He only needed to consider how far he should go. There was no doubt that he could do whatever he wanted. The scenes that he saw on the screen in the conference room today were sufficient proof of his control over Beijiang. Emperor Dong's palace could compete with anyone in the northern borderline, but it could not compete with Jiangshan. They had no chance of winning at all. But why Jiangshan? Lin Fengting frowned and seemed to be puzzled. Li Tianlan did not speak. This was also a question that he could not figure out. Beijiang. Now in the whole Zhongzhou state, there are only two forces that can compete with you in Beijiang. The first is naturally the parliament, and the second is the Wang family of Beihai. The parliament has a reason to compete, but it will not choose to use this way to create chaos. Beihai may use this way and also have the money, but they have no reason to compete with you now. Lin Fengting pondered and said thoughtfully, who else can it be? Maybe it's a foreign force. When has the dark world ever been peaceful? Li Tianlan shook his head. Then they are courting death. Lin Fengting smiled. I guess it won't be so simple. If a foreign force wants to take down Beijiang, it is equivalent to starting a war with Zhongzhou state. Even if Jiangshan takes the lead in the early stage, they have no possibility of winning later. Even if this so-called foreign force is not clear, Jiangshan is not stupid, and he will not cooperate with them. If they dare to take down Beijiang, it means that they are well prepared. The pension is in place, and the people are in favor. At that time, they will definitely show up. As for who they are, we will know when the time comes. If there is nothing else, I am interested in finding out who is behind Beijiang. Lin Fengting said softly. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes and asked, how is the situation in South America? A day ago, many international mercenaries attacked a secret base of the South American branch of the Lin clan. Although there were not many casualties, they lost a lot of information. The information was not top secret, but it was not something that could be easily known. From this action, it could be seen that the mercenaries were very restrained. They almost did not kill anyone. The base they chose was not a very important place, and the information they took was not very important. Obviously, they had scruples. But such an attitude could also be said to be a warning. The shadow of the Jiang family of South America loomed behind them. If the Lin clan did not make a correct response, then the actions of the other party would undoubtedly become more intense. The South American branch immediately asked for help from the headquarters of the Lin clan. The news reached Qin Weibai, and then she passed it on to Lin Fengting. Lin Fengting decided to show up in person. The Lin clan had 12 branches in South America. They were of different sizes, but their combined power was great. The branch that was attacked this time was headquartered in Delunvia. It was the largest branch of the Lin clan in South America. Its comprehensive strength could be regarded as first class even in the whole of South America. The branch patriarch was very close to Lin Fengting by blood, and the two sides had a very good personal relationship. Facing an opponent like the Jiang family of South America, at present, only Lin Fengting could control the situation. Countless branches around the world supported the worry-free villa of the headquarters of the Lin clan, and the headquarters coordinated the win-win development of the major branches in the middle. When necessary, they provided support in terms of force, technology, money, and connections. This was the fundamental mode of survival of the Lin clan, and Lin Fengting's most important responsibility. It was impossible for him not to go. Both good and bad. Little Bai told me that the Jiang family of South America participated in the final battle in Beihai. This time, they took action in South America to force me to go there. If I go to South America, I won't be able to help you and the Wang family of Beihai. The other side is conspiring openly. They don't want to be enemies with me, so they might as well have some conflicts in South America first. If I go, this conflict will be a small one. If I don't go, this conflict will be a big one. Lin Fengting's voice was a little cold. Some time ago, when the Jiang family of South America was ready to make trouble, Little Bai asked Horsewoman to go to South America and warn Jiang Guochu face to face. At that time, Jiang Guochu's attitude was still acceptable, and he calmed down a lot. This time, I want to see who gave him the courage to touch the Lin clan. If you need any help, just tell me. Well, Wuqing is now in the northern borderline. He subconsciously shook his head, somewhat self-deprecatingly. Wuqing did kill all the high-level members of the northern borderline corps and stabilized the situation. But now who would thank him? He asked Wuqing to kill people, which seemed to be a preparation for Jiangshan to take over the northern borderline. Even if he forced himself to pay the compensation amount now, people in the northern borderline would think that it was Jiangshan's operation. The unwillingness in his heart surged out again. He had been miserable since he entered the secular world, but he had never failed. Therefore, he was particularly uncomfortable with this feeling. He shook his head hard, suppressed his inner emotions and said slowly, Wuqing can go to South America. He is on his way back now. Uncle Lin, with Wuqing in your hand, it's enough to destroy the entire Jiang family of South America. I'm going to solve the problem, not to kill. Lin Fengting didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Your killing intent is too strong. From a practical point of view, suddenly destroying the Jiang family of South America is not a good thing for the branch of the Lin clan in South America. I can go there myself. I don't need Wuqing. Li Tianlan nodded and looked at Lin Fengting with some doubts. In fact, he was a little unclear about the meaning of this meeting. But in any case, it was obviously impossible to say a simple farewell. Lin Fengting could leave Zhongzhou State and just make a phone call. But at this time, he specifically asked to meet him. How could there be no business? Li Tianlan didn't know what business it was, but after thinking about it, the most impossible thing that Lin Fengting needed help became the only possibility. Proposing to let Wuqing go to South America was the strongest help Li Tianlan could offer at this time. Even more useful than going there himself. Lin Fengting didn't need it, so what did he want to do at this meeting? I came here today to talk to you about Wuqing. Lin Fengting said softly. Go ahead. Li Tianlan kept quiet and nodded. Lin Fengting was silent for a while, as if considering the wording. After a while he said slowly. You should have some understanding of the nature of Wuqing, right? Murderous weapon? Li Tianlan frowned. You can say that, but the most accurate way is not like this. The nature of Wuqing is not a murderous weapon. To be exact, the nature of a murderous weapon is Wuqing. Lin Fengting pushed a folder with information in front of him in front of Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan thought for a while and said quietly, Li Guangtu once told me that Wuqing is the human emperor. Yes and no. Lin Fengting said slowly. Wuqing is a whole of many murderous weapons, not a combination. They should be a whole. You mean, in addition to the 12 murderous weapons we are now familiar with, there are many murderous weapons that form the current Wuqing? Lin Fengting was slightly stunned. He naturally knew the origin of Wuqing, but he didn't know how to explain it to Li Tianlan. Dongqing Huangtu couldn't explain it, and it was difficult for Wuqing to explain it. But thinking of the final battle in Beihai, the problem of Wuqing must be explained clearly. He was silent for a while, then simply bypassed the question of Wuqing's origin and said with a smile, Look at the information first. I copied it from the Lin clan's database. Li Tianlan glanced at him and opened the folder. He pulled out the neatly arranged information. On the first page of the information, there was a simple line of words, like a brief introduction to the information. The origin of murderous weapons. Chapter 938. The origin of murderous weapons. Li Tianlan's eyes fell on these words. After about half a minute, he slowly opened the document in his hand. The information was densely packed with words, as well as a large number of pictures. The first picture that appeared on the first page was an extremely menacing-looking metal armor. Saint's robe. Li Tianlan said quietly. This was a historical term, and it was a world-famous historical term. Although Li Tianlan knew it was a suit of armor, it was the first time he had seen the saint's garment. Li Tianlan shook his head. I didn't expect the saint's garment to look like this. This is the original form of the saint's robe. Lin Fengting said calmly. It can transform into any form. Saber, spear, weapon, cloak, anything. Throughout the history of the Wang family of Beihai, the saint's clothes could be said to be one of their most important foundations. Do you know where it came from? Lin Fengting asked. I've heard about it from Grandpa. Li Tianlan said. The saint's garment was the strongest individual combat capability the Wang family of Beihai had encountered before it reached the peak. It was about the ancestor of the Wang family of Beihai. It was also related to the ancestors of the Lin clan, and the Li family's Zhuanyuan Tai. The saint's garment was not a product of the Wang family of Beihai's research, but a trophy from the enemy of the Wang family of Beihai. It is said that the saint's garment came from a reclusive family. That history is a little vague now. It involved the Star State War, which was also the war in which the Wang family of Beihai really reached the peak position, and the war in which Zhongzhou State became the world's hegemon. Lin Fengting's voice was very light, with a little smile. At that time, the ancestor of our Lin clan was still in the Wang family of Beihai. He was the war god of Beihai, and his status was no worse than that of the chosen one emperor of Beihai. This is the story between the Lin clan's immortal king of war and the North Sea emperor. It is safe to say that the two of them were at the peak of the military force at that time. They were the promoters and the most important executors of the war in Star State. In a crucial battle at the end of the Star Nation War, the two of them ran into the Saint's garment. The quiet cafe reverberated with a soft murmur. A breeze that shouldn't have appeared here suddenly swept through the coffee shop. Lin Fengting narrowed his eyes. At this moment, the space in the coffee shop seemed to be fluctuating slightly, distorting at a frequency that ordinary people could not detect. A black figure abruptly walked out of the distorted space and silently appeared beside the coffee table. The black windbreaker floated in the air quietly. Extremely pure sword energy filled the hem of the windbreaker, the cuffs and the hood. The sword energy stirred the space and refracted continuously, eventually turning into another Li Tianlan. Li Tianlan, who was formed by sword energy, stood in front of the table and looked down at the picture in Li Tianlan's hand. After a long time he slowly nodded to Lin Fengting. Even though Lin Fengting knew what was going on, he still couldn't get used to this strange scene. He calmed himself down and continued. At that time, the holy garment was worn by the enemy. Although the enemy was one of the most powerful beings of that era, he couldn't possibly be a match for either the emperor or the god king of war in a one-on-one fight. The two Li Tianlans listened quietly. Lin Fengting knocked on the documents on the table and said slowly, "But because of this saintly garment, the enemy easily injured the emperor and the god of war king. Their attacks couldn't even break through the saintly garment's defenses. They couldn't do anything to the enemy inside the saintly garment." Li Tianlan nodded. He finished reading the first page and turned the page. There were a few pictures on the second page besides the text. One of them was still the holy garment, but there was a short stick beside it. The shape of the short stick was slender and strange. The top seemed to be a clenched fist, but the index finger was stretched forward, forming an extremely sharp point. Ruthless, who was standing in front of the table, seemed to move slightly. "Holy scepter." Lin Fengting's voice was neither hurried nor slow. In that decisive battle, it was this thing that broke through the defense of the saint's robe with a single blow and directly killed the enemy inside the saint's robe. It was an understated and weak attack. "Which emperor did it?" Li Tianlan asked. "No, not the emperor and the god king of war, but he was also the ancestor of the Lin clan. In terms of blood relationship, he was the ancestor of the Lin clan in Europe." Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows. The Lin clan had branches all over the world, but the branch in Europe was the strongest in terms of comprehensive strength. In fact, it wasn't the ancestor who broke the holy garment, but the holy scepter. The scepter and the holy garment were one. When the two came into contact in the battle, they formed a very special energy resonance. The two forces of the same origin accommodated each other. Just one blow directly penetrated the enemy inside the holy garment. After the death of the top expert of the hidden family, the War of Star State soon won a comprehensive victory. Since then, the Wang family of Beihai and Zhongzhou State both reached their own peak. Ruthless didn't speak. Li Tianlan didn't speak either. Only Lin Fengting's voice echoed clearly. After the war, the ancestors of the Wang family of Beihai had a strong interest in the energy of the saint's garment and the saint's scepter. The information left by the hidden family mentioned that the two came from the same magical metal. And it's only a very small part of that piece of metal. Beihai used many methods to contact and analyze that energy. In the end, many scientists confirmed that the energy of the saint's garment and saint's scepter is a new type of energy that has never been seen before. Beihai analyzed the new energy in detail and made a lot of models. During this period, Beihai began to look for the whereabouts of the magical metal. This process lasted about 2 years. A team of scientists in Beihai perfected the model of the new energy after combining a lot of information, and finally came up with a very amazing theory. This was the perpetual energy that had appeared in history. The scientists believed that when there was enough of this special energy that had never been seen before, the new energy could produce a real, inexhaustible power. This power could form unimaginably huge destructive power, but it could also promote unimaginably huge affairs. The power of the new energy could be cycled repeatedly, and there was almost no loss in the process. Lin Fengting shook his head and said in a sentimental tone, This kind of theory is an irresistible temptation for any force. When it was proved that this theory not only existed on paper, but could even be realized, the ancestor of the Wang family of Beihai launched an expedition to the Western land and put forward the Savior Plan. The Savior Plan? Li Tianlan was a little confused. This term didn't appear in history. In fact, it was more appropriate to call it the Terminator Plan. That was the greatest ambition and madness of that heavenly son. The headquarters of the hidden family with the magical metal was somewhere in the Western land. It took nearly 5 years to find the headquarters of that family. 5 years later, Beihai finally determined the headquarters of the hidden family. At the same time, the Savior Plan began to be officially implemented. The so-called Savior Plan was that the Heavenly Son intended to use all the energy of the complete magical metal to build a new Mount Dibbing. In other words, it was a floating space city with a perfect weapon system and defense system. The floating power, firepower, and defense system of the floating space city could all be supported by an inexhaustible power. The powerful power could make the floating space city reach an incredible speed. Now it seems Lin Fengting laughed. According to the current understanding, the idea of the floating space city was to gather dozens or hundreds of murderous weapons together to form a weapon system that could continuously fire every minute and second without worrying about energy storage. At the same time, it made an invincible energy shield that could surround a city by gathering the energy of countless murderous weapons. Finally, with the powerful energy power as the engine, the floating space city could float in the sky forever. Once this idea became a reality, the floating space city could appear in any corner of the world at any time and anywhere. It could appear directly from Zhongzhou State to Star State in a few minutes. Its energy was endless, so even a nuclear bomb couldn't break the energy shield of the floating space city. The weapons of the floating space city could keep firing without any pause. Sufficient firepower could pour out 1 day, 1 year, 10 years without any interval. Li Tianlan's mouth twitched and his scalp went numb. Such a result meant one thing. That's right. Lin Fengting seemed to know what he was thinking and whispered. Once the floating space city became a reality, the Wang family of Beihai could unify the world in the shortest time and become the only master of the world. Unify the world. Ambitious people, heavenly sons, no matter who they were, this could be said to be the supreme temptation. But obviously, the Savior Plan did not succeed, because the Wang family of Beihai later got the magical metal, but there was no sign of the floating space city. What happened later? Later, Lin Fengting's tone was a little complicated. He glanced at Wu Qing and continued. Later, the ancestor of Beihai entered the headquarters of the hidden family and saw that piece of metal. Although he knew before that the metal was a strange energy and living body, he did not expect it to have such high intelligence. This might sound contradictory, but in fact, it was not contradictory at all. Life and wisdom could never be equated. Beasts and plants all had life, but few people would say that beasts and plants would have enough wisdom. They mostly had instincts. But obviously that piece of metal was not like that. It's almost history repeating itself. Lin Fengting smiled. The heavenly son of Beihai was seriously injured by that piece of metal almost at once. He was seriously injured and almost died on the spot. As for the reason, it was because he was wearing the saint's garment. That piece of metal had an irresistible suppression on the saint's garment. Under the resonance of energy, the ancestor of Beihai even lost the ability to fight before he could react. At that time, the Lin clan had been established for a few years. After receiving the news, the ancestor of the Lin clan rushed to the Western land as soon as possible, accompanied by many powerful forces at that time, such as Rothschild, the Shadow Throne, the German Habsburg family, and of course, Zhongzhou State and Snow Country. Among the many forces, Zhongzhou State could not refuse. Rothschild and the Habsburg family were allies of the Wang family of Beihai. The Shadow Throne, like now, represented many European countries. They and Snow Country provided a lot of technical support and special equipment. After all, the ancestors of the Wang family of Beihai and the Lin clan were already the strongest combat force of that era. They couldn't break the defense of the saint's garment even when they joined forces. And when the saint's garment was completely suppressed, Beihai could only rely on some special equipment. All the forces surrounded the headquarters of the hidden family and temporarily interfered with the magnetic field of the headquarters with technology, temporarily slowing down the circulation of new energy. Of course, the process was not easy, but the outcome was barely good. The piece of life metal with self-consciousness and self-intelligence was bombarded by a large number of high-tech weapons when it was disturbed. The area within a few miles became a battlefield. Lin Fengting looked at Wu Qing quietly, and then glanced at Li Tianlan. It was like a real high-end war. Lin Fengting paused and then added, a high-end war that lasted for half a year. Li Tianlan raised his eyebrows in surprise. Half a year. Lin Fengting smiled bitterly. All the forces used almost all the weapons they could and interfered with the magnetic field and energy operation countless times. But even under the interference, the energy circulation inside the piece of metal was still endless. It took half a year to barely break the balance. The funny thing is that this balance was not broken by the forces, but the piece of metal itself was not perfect, or in other words, incomplete. Li Tianlan's heart moved. Because of the saint's garment and the saint's scepter? Yes. Lin Fengting smiled. It was because of the absence of these two things that the cycle of the life metal was flawed. In the end, the forces seized a small opportunity and broke the life metal. After the life metal was broken, all the forces were very interested in this new energy that could self-circulate. They kept negotiating and trading, and finally divided the fragments. Zhongzhou State got one, Beihai got one, the Lin clan got one, and Rothschild, Snow Country, Habsburg Shadow Throne. Each force got a piece. There were a total of 13 fragments, and they were all divided. Li Tianlan looked down and read the information. Many things were written in the information. Lin Fengting said it in a simple way, but combined with the information, it became extremely detailed. Every faction that obtained a shard of biometal placed great importance on the research of biometal. About 10 years passed, but all the major factions found nothing. All the factions roughly built a new model, but they couldn't figure out how the energy worked. This meant that no country in the world had any way to study biometal. After the emperor of the Wang family of Beihai finally gave up the savior plan and the floating air city, the Wang family of Beihai took the lead in tilting the research direction and turned the research energy into how to make use of this energy. The Lin clan also began to study similar problems at almost the same time. The Wang family of Beihai combined the saint's garment with the metal fragment, and the Lin clan combined the saint's scepter with the metal fragment. The two weapons that shocked the world appeared almost at the same time. The one in Beihai deliberately strengthened its power, reduced the speed at which the weapon absorbed energy, and made its structure extremely strong. The one in the Lin clan slightly reduced its power, but increased the speed at which it absorbed energy. Compared with the one in Beihai, its power was slightly weaker, but the speed at which it absorbed energy was 30% faster. It maximized the power and the speed of absorption. But the price was that the weapon itself became relatively fragile. Lin Fengting smiled. The Wang family of Beihai named these two weapons Human Emperor, and the Lin clan named them Infinite Sky. These were the first two murderous weapons in the Dark World. After the appearance of the two murderous weapons, other forces also began to imitate the Human Emperor and Infinite Sky to use that piece of metal. Then there was the third unpredictable rainbow belonging to Rothschild, which slowly developed into the 13 murderous weapons. After Infinite Sky was broken more than 20 years ago, it became the 12 murderous weapons. As for now, he looked at Ruthless in front of him with complicated eyes. This is the origin of the murderous weapons? Li Tianlan asked. Yes. The 13 murderous weapons appeared one after another. Under normal circumstances, the matter of the life metal should be over. Lin Fengting's eyes were a little vague. Until the second piece of life metal appeared. Chapter 939. Li Tianlan subconsciously sat up straight. If he had some understanding of the story Lin Fengting told before, then the last sentence undoubtedly touched the blind spot of his knowledge. There was only one piece of life metal, and all murderous weapons came from that piece of life metal. This was something all the forces in the dark world knew. Where did the second piece come from? If there was a second piece, why hadn't it appeared for so many years? Where is the second piece of life metal? Li Tianlan asked directly. To be precise, it's not the second piece. It's the other half. Lin Fengting smiled. I've said it before. That piece of metal has extraordinary intelligence. We can completely treat it as another kind of life. Having intelligence means that it's afraid of being destroyed. So in that secret war, although the life metal was broken, before it was broken, it stimulated all its energy, kept the most core part, and hid itself. The so-called second piece is the core of the original life metal. Li Tianlan frowned slightly. In that case, Beihai shouldn't have been able to find it. This has something to do with the energy cycle mode of the life metal. Lin Fengting shook his head. The life, will, and intelligence of the life metal all come from its energy, such as ruthlessness. When there is enough energy, it is ruthless. But when there is no energy, it becomes Xianyuan Feng. Maybe it still has intelligence and can do all kinds of things with you, but obviously it can't reach the level it is now. When the life metal was broken, its will was basically broken. Although the core was hidden, there was little energy left. It needed to hide, recuperate, and slowly absorb energy. But because the metal was not complete, it was only a core. So when there was enough energy, its consciousness also became incomplete. From the perspective of human biology, this is equivalent to amnesia. But from the perspective of the life metal, under the energy cycle of the life metal with only one core, it should produce a new, somewhat ignorant new consciousness. When this consciousness becomes clear, its instincts can overcome almost everything. Lin Fengting said slowly. It desires a complete instinct. Li Tianlan narrowed his eyes. So it went to Beihai by itself? Yes. Lin Fengting nodded. At that time, the ancestors of the Lin clan were guests at the North Sea, and the aura of the human sovereign and the endless sky attracted it to the North Sea. But that battle didn't cause much movement, and the new consciousness of the vital metal could barely complete its own cycle. So at that time, the two ancestors of the Lin clan and the North Sea joined hands, and easily cut the core of the vital metal again. Lin Fengting paused and suddenly asked, do you know why the Wang family of Beihai gave up the savior plan? Li Tianlan froze for a moment and said thoughtfully, is it because the energy needed by a piece of vital metal found in Beihai can't really perfectly circulate forever? No, one piece of life metal is actually enough. In theory, it can already create a cycle of energy that doesn't need to be exhausted. It's just that Earth's environment isn't good. His smile was a little strange. All countries are developing the aerospace industry, looking for the so-called life in outer space. There are all kinds of speculations about aliens. The source of the vital metal is meteorites from outer space. From this point of view, the vital metal is a real alien. It can't be regarded as a human, but it is indeed an outer space life with life and intelligence. At present, there is no evidence that the vital metal is an outer space race, but its living conditions are obviously different from those of humans. The environment on Earth is obviously not its cup of tea. It doesn't need water or oxygen. Years of research show that it seems to need a very special kind of cosmic radiation. Only in that state of radiation, its energy cycle is infinitely close to eternal. On Earth, if the savior plan is really launched, the vital metal can indeed run for a period of time when its energy is full, but soon the energy will be overdrawn, and it will fall into an energy storage period of at least 100 years. Without that kind of cosmic radiation, such a plan is not feasible. Li Tianlan suddenly laughed. That is to say, if there is something like a spaceship, the vital metal can be used as the engine of the spaceship. Probably. No one deliberately pays attention to this. Spaceship, this thing. What can it do if it's an engine? Our current technology is far from meeting the requirements, and no one is willing to banish the vital metal to space again. Li Tianlan nodded and said yes. Compared with the illusory outer space world, the power in the hands was undoubtedly more real. And then? And then, Lin Fengting whispered. Because the battle caused by the core was very small, no one except Beihai and the Lin clan knew the existence of the core. At that time, the ancestors of Beihai and the Lin clan decided to make the core of the vital metal the core of the two clans. The two clans used a lot of secret techniques to completely decompose the metal core, so that it could form a new consciousness. Before the new consciousness was born, the two clans simulated the theoretical energy of cosmic radiation, and activated the metal core to a certain extent. Activated? Li Tianlan asked in reply. The specific situation is recorded in the information. To put it simply, they changed part of its nature, turning it into something similar to an energy body. Then they used special means to build a secret base specifically to maintain its existence. Li Tianlan's mouth twitched. Now it seemed that he was really listening to a story. After the preliminary work was completed, to be completely safe, the two clans divided the metal core into two. One half was left in Beihai, and the other half was brought back to the Lin clan. In this way, even if the new consciousness had an accident in the future, the two clans could control it with their own strength. Li Tianlan understood now. So you mean even now the Lin clan and Beihai still control the core of the vital metal? That's the foundation, not the control. But it has always been in Beihai and the Lin clan. The core was divided into two. The ancestor of Beihai named his part Wuyo, and the ancestor of the Lin clan named it Worryless. The meaning is very simple. With these two things, Beihai and the Lin clan will always be carefree. Worryless, worryless. Ruthless. Li Tianlan was silent for a long time before he turned to look at Ruthless sitting next to him. Look at your two peers. He couldn't help but say. Compared with them, your name is a bit too lousy, isn't it? Lin Fengting. Ruthless turned his head in a daze and looked at Li Tianlan silently. The extremely condensed sword energy under the trench coat began to dissipate little by little. The face that was exactly the same as Li Tianlan's became blurred. The trench coat softened little by little. Finally, it rested on Li Tianlan's arm, and began to play dead weakly. If it's possible. Li Tianlan pinched the trench coat on his arm, hesitated for a moment, and said, I want to see the Worryless of the Lin clan. It's possible, but you can't see it. Lin Fengting said with a wry smile. They are energy bodies, almost illusory. They are in the Lin clan, but I don't know where they are. Energy has no specific shape. Maybe most of the time, they are a mass of air floating in the villa, or they may be a tree simulated by their own ability. Whether they are worryless or worryless, they are actually not friendly to Beihai and the Lin clan. But now we have turned them into energy bodies, so they can only rely on us to exist. Both the North Sea and the Lin clan have a secret base that can maintain the worry-free existence of energy bodies. This is a top secret that only the Patriarch knows. That is to say, they should be sleeping in the base most of the time, but we just can't see them. But when our two clans encounter a crisis of life and death, they must show up. Otherwise, once our two clans are wiped out, no one will be able to maintain the secret base that keeps them alive. At that time, what awaits them is also extinction. But in the absence of a major crisis, no one can find them unless they show up themselves. Li Tianlan listened quietly. After a long time, he sighed and said with some emotion in his voice, It's amazing. Can't the Worryless leave Beihai and the Lin clan? Of course. Lin Fengting laughed. When they were first created, they were defined as the core foundation of the two clans. This kind of thing is uncontrollable. If they can leave Beihai, then our two clans can't find them at all. How can we expect them to be the foundation? And if they can leave Beihai, the original battle in Mormons would have a different ending. You might not have Xianyuan Feng anymore. Lin Fengting said slowly. Li Tianlan was suddenly shocked. He raised his head and said in a deep voice, What do you mean? Obviously, this was the topic that Lin Fengting wanted to talk to him about today. The core of the vital metal. That kind of activated energy can suppress the power of all murderous weapons to a great extent. If it's a single murderous weapon, Wuyo's energy can make the murderous weapon completely lose control in an instant and turn it into its puppet. Xianyuan Feng. Well, Wuqing is a combination of many murderous weapons, and its state is a little special, but the core is still effective in suppressing it. At present, I don't know to what extent this effect will be, but if the core attacks Wuqing, then Wuqing can't exert its full power at all. The most important thing is, Lin Fengting said helplessly, this situation is uncontrollable. Even the Wang family of Beihai can't control it. And to be honest, the power of Wuqing is obvious to all. Even if the Wang family of Beihai can control it, I'm afraid they won't deliberately stop the core from devouring Wuqing. Under normal circumstances, Wuyou is an energy body. This kind of energy body basically only has the power of one attack. But in a special state, Wuyou's energy can attach to some special metals for a short time and exert a powerful combat capability. Furthermore, if it's more thorough, then it can transform the human body. The Devil Troop of Beihai is an example, but it's not a very successful example. In the current situation, if Beihai is really at a dead end, Wang Shengxiao Summer Solstice and even Wang Tianzong can merge with Wuyou's energy body and become a kind of half-human, half-machine monster. Take Wang Shengxiao as an example. If he merges with Wuyou, he can reach the combat capability of the peak of the invincible realm in an instant. If he enters the invincible realm, this kind of fusion can make him break through the limit of the peak of the invincible realm and reach my level. But there are also limitations to this kind of fusion. First of all, it will bring unimaginable pain to the person being merged. Unless he is forced into a desperate situation and has no high-end combat capability, Beihai is unlikely to make this choice. But even if Wuyou doesn't merge with people, its suppression of Wuqing is also very fatal. Your enemies in Beihai are not only the super forces of the Dark World like the East Island Vatican, but also Wuyou. Such a situation. Lin Fengting shook his head. Li Tianlan was silent for a while and said slowly, would the Wang family of Beihai dare to do that? If there's a chance, Beihai certainly wants to have the Heartless. As long as Wuyou can suppress the Heartless, it can erase the consciousness of the Heartless in the shortest time, and let it form a consciousness loyal to the Wang family of Beihai. As for you, although the two sides are cooperating now, they're not close. After getting the Heartless, the Wang family of Beihai won't be afraid of you. Even if they don't want to fall out with you, at worst, they'll just give you compensation. They're a big family with a big business, and you can't refuse many compensations. Li Tianlan was silent for a while, then nodded and said, I see. After a pause he chuckled and said, thank you. You don't have to be so polite with me. Lin Fengting shook his head and said, actually in the end, although your branch is surnamed Li, in the eyes of the headquarters, there is no difference between you and other branches. There is no hierarchy between the headquarters and the branches of the Lin clan. There is no leader. If you have a problem, I can help. Naturally, I will not shirk. Senior Li also knows about the carefree thing. To tell you the truth, if Senior Li did not know about this, he might not have been so determined to oppose Li Guangtu's action. After a moment of silence, he shook his head and said with a self-deprecating smile, what's your plan? Anyway, I still have to go to Beihai. Li Tianlan shook his head. Now he had no choice. Going to Beihai was not only to help Mount Dibbing, but also to completely destroy Chen Fengqing's last trump card. He and Chen Fengqing were already mortal enemies. If he missed this opportunity, if Chen Fengqing had a chance to breathe, it would be Emperor Dong's palace that would suffer in the future. So even if he knew that Mount Dibbing might have bad intentions for Wuqing, Li Tianlan could only go there. It's okay. Li Tianlan smiled and said, the Wang family of Beihai's idea of Wuqing may not really come true. It's good that you know it. Lin Fengting nodded, glanced at the clock in the cafe, and said simply, let's go. You can study this information when you have time. Of course. Li Tianlan stood up and shook hands with Lin Fengting. Chapter 940. As the main building of Emperor Dong's palace, the magnificent castle in the center of the palace was a large multifunctional office area. The castle was huge and looked magnificent, but it was like an iceberg. Compared with the part exposed to the public, the part hidden underground was more amazing and larger. The castle had 6 floors. The first floor was the hall. When Emperor Dong's palace was fully developed, there would be many office windows here. Now it was just a prototype. The second and third floors were the office areas for the civil staff of Emperor Dong's palace. Departments such as finance, commerce, logistics, public relations, research and development were divided into blocks on the second and third floors. The fourth floor was the multifunctional area, where dining, entertainment, fitness, and leisure were concentrated. It was a place for the civil staff and senior officials to relax. The fifth floor was the data database and monitoring area. More and more files, materials, and data were stored in the Emperor Dong's palace, and it was equipped with a weapon system and monitoring equipment that had almost no blind spots. Almost every corner of the Emperor Dong's palace could be projected on the big screens on the fifth floor. Similarly, after several upgrades, the weapon system could accurately hit any corner of the Emperor Dong's palace. This sixth-generation weapon system, codenamed Guardian, was completely synchronized with Mount Dibing and Beihai. This was also one of the deals Li Tianlan made with Summer Solstice when he swept across Beihai. In terms of technology, it was the world's top level. Even if Emperor Dong's palace really made Xianyuan City a part of itself, with the Guardian as the core, Emperor Dong's palace could also set up some weapon systems to work with the Guardian to protect Emperor Dong's palace in all aspects. The top floor of the castle was the residence of the senior officials of Emperor Dong's palace. Everyone had their own area, and they could decorate it according to their wishes. The sixth-floor building was not so extraordinary, and the internal planning was basically the layout of a normal force. But the underground space of the castle had 12 floors. The first and second floors were the logistics warehouse of Emperor Dong's palace, where daily supplies were stored. From the third floor to the 12th floor, almost every floor was the secrets of Emperor Dong's palace. The third floor of Emperor Dong's palace was Yudonglai's territory. As a poison doctor who had once been famous in the dark world, Yudonglai had been the leader of 3 generations, Li Honghe, Li Guangtu, and now Li Tianlan. It could be said that he was the founding member of the Li family for 3 dynasties. Li Tianlan also respected him enough. At that time he just asked casually, and Li Tianlan directly gave him the 3 basement floors of the castle as a laboratory. Yudonglai's life was very comfortable. He had been dealing with all kinds of poisons for most of his life. For him, it had almost become a survival habit or even an instinct. There were all kinds of seemingly inconspicuous pets in the laboratory on the 3rd underground floor. Yudonglai, who was already old, had completely given up the idea of fighting and let his condition continue to deteriorate. Most of his time was spent in his laboratory taking care of his little babies. Every time he saw them, he felt extremely comfortable. The old man's children had all died on the battlefield. Only his granddaughter was left, and now she had a husband. Yu Qingyan had decided to marry Ning Qianqing in May next year. Because of this, Yudonglai had met and talked with Ning Ziyuan, the commander of the Tiannan Freedom Corps, several times. Even among the current top officials of Emperor Dong's palace, Ning Qianqing's future was destined to be one of the best. His martial arts might not be invincible, and it seemed difficult for him to even enter the peak of the thundershocking realm. But the position of Mayor Xianyuan had already determined his future identity. As long as Li Tianlan did not fall, Ning Qianqing would inevitably become one of the directors standing at the peak of Zhongzhou state in 20 years. Even if he was not the president or the prime minister, he would certainly be a person with real power. Yudonglai was very satisfied with his grandson-in-law. Now I just hope that Qianqing and Qingyan will have children later after they get married. They are still young, so there is no hurry. As for me, I think I can live for many years. If their children are born a few years later, I'll have a few more years to spend with these little babies of mine. When my great-grandchildren or granddaughters are born, I'll have to take care of the 2 little guys' children. These little babies of mine. Oh, my little babies. In the huge laboratory on the 3rd underground floor, Yudonglai happily introduced the internal facilities to Qin Weibai, who followed him. He sounded very happy when he talked about Ning Qianqing and Yu Qingyan. But when he thought of their children and the cute little babies in front of him, his tone inevitably became a little complicated and melancholy, with a trace of expectation and reluctance. Qin Weibai stood beside Yudonglai and quietly looked at a creature that looked like a big frog in an exquisite window in front of her. The big frog was also staring at Qin Weibai. After a short moment of eye contact, its belly bulged and it spat out a mass of green mucus. Qin Weibai frowned slightly and felt a little disgusted. Your little babies are really ugly. Maybe you are as ugly in its eyes. Yu Donglai laughed and knocked on the glass of the window, as if he was greeting the big frog. The big frog jumped up and down and spat out another mouthful of green mucus. The window began to shimmer, and the temperature inside the window began to drop. The gravity inside the window also seemed to have changed slightly. The green slime that rolled down the glass gradually gathered in one spot, slowly condensing in the corner, and finally slid into a transparent container in the window. Qin Weibai frowned slightly and looked away. Next to the big frog, there was a lump of black meat of an unknown species. The meat was slowly wriggling, and there was a black liquid in it. Qin Weibai looked away again. There were countless windows in the huge space on the third underground floor. Almost every window had some strange animals or plants. But at first glance, there were really not many things that were pleasing to the eye. Combined with the cold and damp environment on the third underground floor, Qin Weibai couldn't help saying, "Old man, your taste is getting heavier and heavier." "Really?" Yu Donglai asked in reply. "You weren't like this when I knew you. At that time, you were still cooking in Huating. It seemed that you were more interested in studying the menu." Qin Weibai felt a little helpless. "That's because the environment didn't allow it." Yu Donglai sighed and said, "If I had such a lab back then, I wouldn't have bothered to study the menu. Take a look at this. This is called black moon grass. It's my latest invention. If you grind it into powder and mix it with the little frog's poison, it will become an extremely active poison. If eaten, the target's internal organs will become fibrotic within half a year. In the later stages, this poison can even absorb the activity in the human's blood. Basically, there's no cure for it." You're not interested? Then look at this. I haven't decided on a name for it yet. If you grind it into powder and put it in the food and drink, it's colorless and tasteless, but it can quickly burn fat inside the human body. I can guarantee that even the body of an invincible realm expert can't bear the effect of this drug, and become weaker and weaker in the shortest time. Isn't it awesome? Qin Weibai listened quietly and suddenly said, "To put it bluntly, isn't this a diet drug?" "It's different from diet drugs. This kind of drug can burn fat even for people who don't need to lose weight. It's possible to turn them into dry people." Yu Donglai looked serious. Qin Weibai felt a little helpless. "Old man, you're really getting more and more boring. You don't understand the fun of the old." Yu Donglai laughed and said, "It's a hobby. Where's the thing I want to see? I think everything here is what you want to see." Yu Donglai muttered and walked to the depth of the laboratory. "Don't tell me you don't know what it means for me to put the laboratory here." Qin Weibai smiled and didn't speak. Of course, she knew what it meant to put Yu Donglai's laboratory here. It not only meant that Li Tianlan had absolute trust in him, but also meant that Li Tianlan recognized his ability as a poison doctor. The castle had 6 floors above ground and 12 floors below ground. Strictly speaking, there was nothing particularly important on the 6 floors above ground. The real secrets were all underground. Except for the warehouses on the 1st and 2nd floors, from the 3rd floor onwards, every floor below had secrets of Emperor Dong's palace. To say the least, even if Li Tianlan was not in Emperor Dong's palace in the future, and the enemy broke into Emperor Dong's palace, or even broke into the castle, Yu Donglai could use his laboratory to completely turn the space on the 3rd floor into a poison battlefield to protect the secrets of the lower floors. From this point of view, the ugly animals and twisted plants in the laboratory could be regarded as part of the trump card of Emperor Dong's palace. This was what Qin Weibai needed to see. But it was not what she wanted to see most. "I always feel that you're a little eager. Are you going to use this thing to plan something again?" Yu Donglai took Qin Weibai to a completely sealed area of the laboratory and asked casually, "You'll know soon." Qin Weibai's voice was a little expectant. Yu Donglai shrugged slightly and put his hand on the door handle. He verified his fingerprint, entered the password, scanned his pupils and verified the password again. Click! There was a clear sound. The alloy door opened slightly to both sides, and behind the door, a space the size of a living room appeared in front of them. Chirp! An incomparably clear and melodious voice rang out without warning. This sound was not loud, but it suddenly appeared, extremely clear and even a little harsh. It was like a bird's chirp that was distorted to the extreme. It was not angry, but extremely violent, like a crazy burning fire. Qin Weibai seemed to frown a little uncomfortably, but she still walked in. There was almost no extra furniture in the small sealed space. There was only a small table with pens and ink on it, as well as a few neatly arranged thick notebooks. A special glass cover covered most of the space, and inside the glass cover was a field of brightly colored lush. Qin Weibai took 2 steps forward. Inside the glass cover, a twisted purple tree about 2 meters high stood inside the glass cover. It was dark purple all over, and even its leaves were glowing with a dark purple light. The purple tree was thick and twisted. The trunk, which should have been straight, seemed to have been folded at will countless times, looking extremely uncoordinated. The dense branches and leaves grew without any pattern, and the whole thing looked extremely ferocious. A fiery red bird was standing on a branch, silently staring at Qin Weibai outside the glass cover. Under the trunk, on the green grass that was a little black, a blue turtle was quietly lying under the tree, motionless. A red bird, a blue turtle, and a purple tree. Qin Weibai stood in front of the glass cover, watching this scene and kept silent for a long time. This is what you want to see. Yu Donglai's light voice rang out. It's also the most successful masterpiece of my life. What do you think? It's spectacular. Qin Weibai whispered. The top that you're tuning in to the Echoes of the Heart YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.